We open with the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, Vicki, could you please read the roll?
Commissioner Pop,
Here.
Commissioner Bauerle,
Here.
Commissioner Berkey,
Yeah.
Commissioner Peschel,
Here.
Commissioner Heinen,
Here.
Okay, next item we have is approve or amend the agenda. I see we're gonna be amending it, so.
Okay, let's see if we can work our way through these. Let's take, so the first item I'd like to add would be, it's titled, Consider a Resolution Establishing a Benton County Cares Business Assistance Program. If we could add that as the second item under County Administrator at 9:14, that'd be the second item. And it looks like the next two items are also CARES related. So how about before we recess for Human Services Board, you add the next two items. The first would be 2020 CARES Election Grant and Resolution, Auditor Treasurer. The second would be the high throughput scanner and tabulator Auditor Treasurer, right before Human Services Board. You also have on the dais this document. That's interesting.
Yep.
This goes with the first item under Administrator, the CARES Business Assistant Grant Program Guidelines. It's different because late last week, I had a meeting with the BEP CARES Committee, and they requested the two changes. I hope you have the version that's got the yellow, then you can see what changed. They wanted to make it explicit that gambling was an excluded activity. Number 7 simply clarifies, there was some confusion about what we were intending there. The intention is that a chain business would qualify. It just has to be owned by someone who lives in Benton County. So that just, it's replacing what you have there. Okay, thanks, Vicki, yep. So that's it for amending County Board. The other item there will be amending Human Services Board, the Zing Tree item.
Okay, a motion to accept with the additions, Mr. Chair.
Okay. A motion second to accept the agenda with the additions. Any discussion? None, I'll call that. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. The agenda is adopted with the additions. Any open forum back there?
Nobody here.
Nope. Okay. The consent agenda. Approve or amend the regular meeting minutes of August 4th, accept and file committee of the whole minutes of July 28th. Approve management representation letter related to the audit of the Benton County financial statements for the year ending December 31st, 2019. Item 4, reapprove contract with Centricare for 2021 jail medical services. Anybody want any of those pulled? Not, a motion would be in order to accept the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Consent agenda is adopted. Next up, we have Chris Bird, presentation, summary of maintenance costs for the calendar year.
Good morning, Commissioners. So I'm just going to give a presentation here, not requiring any action. It's just for informational purposes. But we've about wrapped up our annual report for 2019. I know it seems like it's kind of late. That's due to a transition to a new highway accountant, and although she's really great, she came to us with a lot of years of experience from Mille Lacs County. Just getting our books in a good situation took a little bit longer than I anticipated. And what I mean by that is just pulling together all of our costs and make sure everything was coded correctly and some things. So I learned some things through this process that I wanted to share with you. So we're going to just jump right into it. First of all, I'd like to start with talking about the size of our system. And some of this you probably already know. We have 451 centerline miles of road in Benton County. And why do I distinguish it as centerline miles? Well, it's because lane miles is obviously a lot higher than that. One centerline mile of a 2-lane road is actually 2 lane miles. And that's significant because when you think about snow plowing, 1 mile of road, a snowplow truck will have to at least drive that twice to get each lane. We have other multi-lane roads. For example, Benton Drive, Arkansas 33 in Sauk Rapids, from downtown up to the Trunk Highway 15 bridge. That's actually 5 lane miles per mile because it's 2 lanes in each direction and you got a center turn lane. So that may take 4 or 5 passes of a snowplow truck on that same mile of roadway. And although we have an agreement with the city of Sauk Rapids to plow that for us, we do pay them through a maintenance agreement for doing that. So that just kind of give you in scope of our miles. So like I said, lane miles is more. Of that 451 center lane miles, 225 miles of that is CSAH, County State Aid Highway. Even that is divided into a little over 209 miles of regular CSAH. And what do I mean by regular CSAH? This would be our miles, centerline miles of County State Aid Highway in the rural parts of Benton County, or like CSAH 3 in Sauk Rapids, Benton Drive in Sauk Rapids, 29 in Sartell. Because we have an additional 15 and a half miles that's considered municipal CSAH. And municipal CSAH is our County State Aid Highway mileage within the cities that are under 5,000 population. So the portion of Dewey Street that we just did, a portion of our CSAH 4 that's within the city limits of Foley here is considered municipal mileage. 3 and 5 within Gilman, and then the portions of CSAH 2 that's within the city of Rice. So those all contribute to our municipal CSAH mileage. And those are broken out because with the way we receive state aid funding, it's broken out similarly as well, as we get an allotment each year for regular CSAH construction and an allotment each year for municipal CSAH construction. So that's why we differentiate those and track those costs per mile accordingly. Now, we have 226 miles of county road. Yeah, you saw that right. We do have 1 more mile of county road than we do of state aid road. And that's unique within the state of Minnesota. Most counties have more miles of CSAH than they do of county road, and I think that presents a unique challenge for us. Part of this is due to the Highway 23 expansion up to Foley here several years ago. Old Highway 23 from County Road 62 up to the city limits of Foley where it becomes Dewey Street. That was a stretch of road that became a county road after the State Highway Department, MnDOT, expanded 4 lanes. So those kind of things have contributed to additional county road mileage over the years. Now within our county roads, 105 miles are still gravel surfaced. Okay, size of the system. I thought this was interesting too as I started looking at numbers. So our townships in Benton County have an additional 307 miles of township roads. And I bring this up just because, that's, even though that's not our responsibility, that is a burden on the taxpayers in Benton County. Townships have to tax that too. Although they do get a portion of the gas tax to do this, I don't think that by any means helps fund those roads 100%. But you add in those 307 miles of township roads to our 451 miles, that's 750 miles almost in rural Benton County that's taxpayer burden. All right, so I was really intrigued by this. I did a little bit more digging. So I want to start thinking about sections, so mile sections in Benton County. So, a typical public land surveying section. This is 1 mile dimension, this is 1 mile, 1 mile.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Jake had a
So,
question.
the city's miles should be added to that too, if you're talking about all the roads the taxpayers are paying for, right?
That is true. You're right. I don't know exactly, but I found out Sauk Rapids. I found some numbers that talked about St. Cloud in general. I don't know how much St. Cloud's in Benton County. I did some estimating. That's probably another 100 miles of public road on city streets within Benton County. So yeah, we're up above 800 public miles of road. Once again, that's centerline miles. And I didn't even include the state trunk highway miles, but we don't typically think about that being a local tax burden. So yeah, I think that's significant. And I'll show why I think that's significant. So, of the 12 townships in Benton County, you know, a township is 6 miles by 6 miles, so 36 square miles per township. If every section in Benton County had a road around it, that would be about 924 miles. So just looking at Benton County's burden and the township's burden, you know, that's 81%. So add in those city miles, I mean, we're almost there. Equivalent to every mile section had a road to it, had a public road to it. I think that's significant, and I don't, you know, if I had all the time in the world, I'd want to compare to see what we are with other counties. But you can imagine up here in this part of the state, and probably northern Minnesota, there's a lot of unorganized townships where there aren't public roads to it. So they've got this large land area that they aren't having to provide public road services to, you know, large sections of land. So I think that's significant in our county. We have a lot of area that we're serving.
Mr. Chair, you know, actually, you should think about, if you added the state to that, we're pushing 1,000 miles, I guess, and got 858 without the state roads. If you add the states, there's probably almost 1,000 miles of road to maintain.
When you add in 23, 10, 25,
20, yeah,
and 95, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. So I think that's a big burden that we're trying to bear with, you know, our ability to pay for that. And so, being a curious engineer as I am, I want to see how we do compared to our neighbors. So when you think about our ability to pay, a lot of it comes down to our levy, our property tax, you know? So you could almost relate that to your land area. If you have more land area, you have more possible levy you can make. So our land area in Benton County is 408 square miles. Stearns is 1344, over 1,000 square miles of land area. Our neighbors to the north in Morrison County, 1124. Our neighbors to the south, Sherburne, not too much bigger than us at 436 square miles. I didn't get Mille Lacs County numbers. They had just hired a new county engineer, and I wasn't able to pull that number up as easily. But I think they're very similar to us in Sherburne in their land area and their CASA mileage. So yeah, so I got those neighboring counties' land areas, and I'm able to find out the miles of county road, including CASA, that they maintain. Once again, Benton County is 451 miles. Stearns is 966 miles, including their CASA and county roads. Morrison is 720. Sherburne is less than us at 408 miles of road that the county has to maintain. Once again, there's a summary of the land area. So to compare this, I just divided the number of lane miles that the county has to maintain into their land area. When I did that, we're at 1.1. Remember, we have 451 miles to 408 square miles of land area. Our neighbors to the west are at 0.78. Morrison is 0.64. Sherburne is 0.94. And so this is making a lot of assumptions. If 1 square acre of land was worth the same as it is in Stearns County or Morrison or Sherburne County, obviously our neighbor counties would have a greater capacity to maintain their miles of road than what we would have, just because we have more miles to the land area that's able to pay for it. That's the kind of the way I was thinking here with these numbers here. Just trying to highlight the burden that we have. All right, so a summary of our costs. This is what, well, along with determining the correct number of lane miles and stuff, our annual report does. And so you should have got these papers in your packet and stuff. And so what this is just a table that would appear in the annual report when the whole document is completed. But you could see a lot of the things that we track through, you know, our cost accounting software system, our timesheet system, and how those are broken out into categories. So me, as the county engineer, or if you as a board member was ever curious, I could get down to things like CASA, our regular CASA mileage. How much should we spend on snow and ice removal in 2019? And I could tell you that we spent $504,341 on snow and ice removal in 2019. That comes out to $2,400 per mile. I even had our accountant do like a 5-year running average, and I can tell you that that is above the 5-year average for snow and ice removal, just looking at that. So those are the kind of things that I have available to me. If anybody was ever curious or wanted to know, I could produce that kind of information. But in my presentation here, I kind of summarized it. So in 2019, our regular CASA miles total, we spent $1,435,000 and some change. That averages out per mile at $6,847, almost $48 per mile, what we spent to maintain our CASA mileage. That is a little bit less than the 5-year average, even though our snow removal in 2019, like I just mentioned, was higher. In 2018, just to put it in perspective, we spent $1,687,000. Now, we do get a CASA state aid maintenance allotment to pay for that. Also, I can tell you that in 2019, we did not spend our whole allotment, our whole state aid allotment in 2019. But conversely, in 2018, we overspent our maintenance allotment. So it kind of fluctuates depending on, well, a lot of it is dependent on snow. When does snow start flying? How much snow did we get? And things like that. So moving on, though, our municipal CASA maintenance, we spent $15,725. Remember, that was about 15 miles. But we didn't work on every mile in 2019. So that averages out to about $7,442 per mile. The 5-year average is $68.91. So in 2019, we had a little bit of additional expense per mile than the average. In 2018, we spent $88,000, so significantly less in 2019 than we did in 2018. We also do the same thing, even though we don't necessarily have to, but since we're already doing it for CASA mileage, we do the same thing for our county road mileage. We break it down by all those categories and do that. So I can tell you that for county roads in 2019, just for example, snow and ice removal, we spent $300,506 on snow and ice removal. But total, we spent $1,857,402 on county road maintenance in 2019. That averages to over $8,000 per mile. The 5-year average is 77, so we're slightly above the 5-year average in 2019. In 2018, we spent $1.9 million. We even tracked this by road surface. So I could tell you the gravel road maintenance cost in 2019. Remember, this is the 105 miles of road that we have. We spent $469,000 in 2019 on our gravel roads. That averages to $4,474 per mile, which is slightly under by about $2,000 or $1,500 from our 5-year average. Because in 2018, we spent $704,000. A big thing that factors into this is snow and ice removal. We don't plow our gravel roads every snowfall, only when we get significant amounts, maybe 3-4 inches or more per time will we go out and plow gravel roads. 2019 also, we did not do a lot of gravel surfacing. And so graphically, this is what this looks like. We have a lot more miles of CASA regular, so we spent a lot more total. But this red line shows the cost per mile. So our county road, paved county roads, are costing us the most per mile right now. And I think that's anecdotally what we kind of are hearing from our residents and just driving. Our county roads are in tough shape, and that's why we did things by adopting the sales tax, is try to identify some additional resources to put towards county roads and such. So that was kind of a quick summary, but I guess the point I want to try to make today is that I think we've got a heavy lift in our county of what we have to maintain and upkeep compared to our ability to pay for it. And also I want to make the point that we do have a lot of numbers at our disposal that we can share and digest and dive into further to kind of look at costs and where costs are trending and things like that. So it was just an informational presentation, so I'd be happy to answer any questions the best I can at this time. If not, I can easily step aside too.
Anyone?
Yeah, I guess I agree. That's why I voted for the sales tax, is because, 38% of that revenue comes from outside the county, and people
That's
from
right.
outside the county use our roads.
Yeah,
And
correct.
another analysis you should do is miles of road per capita.
That's a good, yeah, that would be a good comparison
Because
too.
we've got way more miles per capita than Stearns and Sherburne, big time.
I would agree. I think, yeah, I don't know off the top of my head, but I completely agree with that. The problem with that too is that, if you live on one of those low volume roads, you want it upkept, kept up as well as the high volume roads too. So, and I think that is a definite challenge too. We have less population, but a lot of miles. Good point.
The other
Excellent
point I make is, the gravel road shows quite a bit less maintenance than the paved roads, but as you pointed out, there's a lower level of service there. You don't plow them every time.
Yeah, correct. Yep.
And so if you plowed them every time, they would be closer in maintenance costs, but.
Yeah. Excellent point.
Chair. One other thing, it would be kind of interesting, and I know they don't have, labor and all the other stuff, is how the townships fare per mile on the cost savings or what they do. They can do things a lot different than we can do,
You're right. You're right. And I think Commissioner Brawley kind of touched that too. It's a level of service too. What's the expectation of our county roads compared to township roads? You're right. A lot of township roads, if they do plow, I don't know how many of them apply salt. That's a big thing. That's a big expense every year. $75,000 to $100,000 a year on just salt and sand to put on our roads. So that is a good question. Yeah.
Pick a couple of townships that, one that has majority gravel roads and one that has majority, asphalt, and see how they fare.
Yeah, and we don't, Chris, we don't plow our gravel roads right away either, when we get that first snow, so that bring the cost down too.
That's exactly right. Yeah. We hate plowing early fall, late spring, because that's when they're really soft and stuff. So, yeah.
Does that make up for the, when you don't plow that 1 or 2 times you don't plow, does that make up for the annual every 5 years or 8 years of graveling that you have to do on the gravel roads?
I don't know for sure, but I wouldn't think so.
No.
Several years ago, I had done an analysis and looked at, one day of snow plowing, what does that cost us with fuel, materials, labor and everything. And it was in the range of $20,000 to $25,000 per day. So a couple days of not plowing, gravel roads, maybe, if it's 105 miles out of 400, so a quarter of that. So I don't know if that makes up for it. There's the other thing, pave roads, and you've got typically more signing, more stop signs, more stop ahead signs, no passing zones, striping. There's a lot more features on a paved road that the county is expected to maintain versus other surfaced roads. So.
The only part that I know is that in Langola, they left their road and bridge fund the same when they asphalted all the roads. And in a 9-year period or whatever, they had enough to put that second layer to make it a heavier, on 8 or 9 ton road. That they saved that much on gravel, and they did have to buy, like you said, they do buy salt and sand now.
Okay.
because Otherwise, the intersections are bad.
Sure.
So there is some savings, but, again, we're up in the sand country too. That makes a big difference.
Yeah. Very good. Excellent points.
Anyone else? It's not, very interesting, Chris, a different way of looking at some of those things. It was interesting, so, thank you.
Thank you.
Monty, you're up next. You just want to go through your 2 items here?
Just put this up on the, switch over to the. Alrighty, so the purpose of the first item is to establish broad criteria for a BEP Business Assistance Program using the county's allocation of federal CARES funding. So it seemed logical that if you're going to ask BEP to get lots of money out into the business community, they need some parameters to work with. In other words, what's important to the county board and how they get those dollars out. I think I shared this with you all in draft form at the last meeting. Then you asked me to share it with the BEP CARES Committee and get their feedback, and I did that actually a couple times now. And so this represents a few additions that the BEP CARES Committee wished to add as well. You may notice, for example, in item number 1, they wanted to make it clear that a business in its primary trade is in Ganley would not be eligible for CARES funding. And also there was a change to item number 7. The purpose there is that basically a chain type business could qualify if it's locally owned. So if the local Subway shop is owned by local folks, they could qualify. It's just like a big national chain with ownership, who knows where, couldn't qualify for CARES funding. So again, this again establishes the overall criteria for BEP to manage a business assistance program on behalf of Benton County. Asking for your approval of this today.
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
how about like Midwest Machinery or Arnold's Equipment? They're owned by people in Minnesota, but like John Arnold doesn't live in Benton County.
Right.
But there's
Yeah, they-
there's two big taxpayers there that pay a lot of taxes, and I don't, would they qualify under this criteria or not then?
Boy,
They're big chains,
Well,
Minnesota, but.
Well, that's a good question. I don't know enough
But if
about
they-
them to give you an answer.
If they went under, we'd be
Do they
hurting.
employ 50 or fewer people? Or do they employ 50 or fewer people?
probably not.
They both
just
own
in
about
Benton
7
County.
stores
Yeah.
in Minnesota,
Yeah.
and
Well, certainly, admittedly, the one bias of the criteria is towards small business. And as I've seen other counties adopting similar criteria, there's clearly a bias towards small business, giving them the assistance. Locally owned, locally operated. That seems to be a clear bias, so that's certainly reflected in these criteria.
yeah, this whole thing is a little, CARES Act is a little fuzzy in a lot of areas, so I think we're gonna have to kind of pick our way through it, and I'm sure every county's struggling with the same kind of questions, so. I don't know, we have to start somewhere, so
Right.
this looks like a good start.
maybe we'll, Mr. Chair, if we could watch the other counties, if they start including these Minnesota chains, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess, yeah, there's some audit procedures that you said might come with this too, laid down the line.
The way I understand it is because this is federal funding, our auditors must examine it in greater detail than they would ordinarily. So that means, for example, they need to see evidence that the money was spent in accordance with the federal guidelines, that good internal controls were in place, so on and so forth. So that's one reason why, for example, under item number 12, it says grant recipients will agree to allow an inspection and copying of business records requested by the BEP and county to satisfy sub-recipient monitoring requirements. So we just need to be able to make sure that we can, if we need to, have access to whatever business records support the funding that was requested. So that's why that's in there.
Yeah, okay. So we don't, in other words, they don't really know, yeah.
I
Okay,
guess
so
we can blame, Mr. Chair, the fuzziness on the federal government.
Yeah, right, yeah, it's,
The federal government didn't attach a lot of conditions. It was very broad. Probably, the criteria which best embodies what the federal government said really is item number 9. And it says, can demonstrate an adverse economic impact directly related to the COVID-19 pandemic. That's really what this is all about. The other things, for example, that you find in here, that you don't find these in the federal guides, for example, 50 or fewer employees, primary physical location in your county. That's something I think you can decide locally. Really, the bigger picture was established in item number 9.
okay. So you need a motion to approve the grant guidelines, and then after that, we need to set a dollar amount, right? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I guess we have to start someplace, so
Guys,
anyone,
So move, Mr. Chair, set the guidelines.
that's right.
okay?
I'll
we have-
second it.
We have a motion and a second to accept the criteria for Benton County Assistance Grant Program. Any further discussion? Anyone? Okay, I'll call that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried, and now your second item.
Okay. Second item. So let me tell the story first. Why is this here? Well, again, one purpose is to let the folks at BEP know what they've got to work with. I've had some meetings with the BEP Cares Committee, and they hope to understand a couple of things. What is the total pot of funding that they have to work with? And secondly, how much can they use for their administrative costs? For example, staff time, once they hire an executive director, also marketing. What could they spend, for example, on advertisements and social media and so on to get the word out? So they're curious to know those things so they can get their program designed, plan for it, and so on and so forth. Also, secondly, is Michelle, our assistant county attorney, is working on an agreement between the county and BP that kind of establishes this relationship. Michelle suggested that before adopting that agreement, you would also adopt a resolution which kind of sets the groundwork for this relationship. So that was kind of two purposes. Michelle got for us from Sherburne County their resolution, and I turned to it heavily, made a few adjustments for Benton County specific issues, but the one from Sherburne kind of formed the basis for this. Let's see. So you got tons of whereases and so on and so forth. Really what the meat and potatoes of this would be the now therefore it be resolved on page 2. And basically, again, it says is that this establishes our program. It tells what the intention is. It repeats a bit of the criteria you just adopted. It references those criteria. It shall be administered by the Benton Economic Partnership, Inc. And then it leaves an item number 4 and 5 blank. And hopefully that's an issue you all can decide today, is what would be the dollar amount that they have to work with? And then of that dollar amount, what % would you be inclined to allow them to use for administration?
Mr. Chair,
So,
Steve had a question here.
so Monty, did the BEP give us a percentage of what it would cost for them to run this through the program?
They didn't.
They did not, huh?
At this point, they don't really have a good estimate of what their costs might be. Yeah. You know, Commissioner Byerly asked me to check with Initiative Foundation. I left 2 messages, and I'm sorry I did not hear back from them, what a good percentage would be. And I did a little quick Googling, and you see, you know, sort of percentages ranging between 5 and 10% is what I saw. So, you know, obviously, if you're inclined to allow them to manage a fairly large amount of money, 10% could be a lot of money. And I imagine, though, once their director is hired, though, let's just say, for example, that director is hired here sometime in September, probably virtually all of their time, the rest of the month, October, November, will be spent on this issue, virtually all of it. I don't necessarily think that they'll have to spend a lot of money on marketing. I think through news releases and social media, the word will get around. I don't think they'll have to do a lot of paid marketing. They may do some paid print advertising. I'm not sure beyond that, maybe radio. But I can't feature the marketing will be dramatically expensive, so.
Is this something, if we set a percentage and they come back to us a month or 2 months later saying that this percentage is low compared to what we're spending, can we up it at
Of
that
course you
point in
can.
time?
Absolutely, right, you could
Okay.
always do that, yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, that, you know, they're gonna have documentation what their actually costs are, you know, they're gonna hire an attorney to make sure they're doing it right, they're gonna have an accountant to do the review of the applications and make sure they're qualified, so whatever the costs are, they are, right? I mean,
That's true, you know, I know there was some discussion about them approaching a CPA firm for some assistance, and they have not created a relationship yet with a CPA firm, but that could occur, right, where they have a CPA assistance,
I
so.
would highly recommend that, because,
Right.
you know,
Maybe first things first, if we could talk a
Right.
bit about, what is the dollar amount that you want to make available to BEP? If I could, this is a spreadsheet we looked at last week during budget presentations. And so down here at the bottom in the tan area is the Benton County's total allocation, 4.9 million. It appears based upon what we've identified so far and what we could claim through the end of November, the county probably can retain about 3 million of these dollars internally for salaries, wages, PPE, et cetera, et cetera. It leaves about $1.9 million that's available for other purposes. So jumping to this list, you saw this last week. So I asked all departments, okay, do you feel that there anything that you could use these CARES dollars for to help us respond to the pandemic and manage the situation long-term? And my intention wasn't to review this in detail today, or I'd like to do this with you sometime within the next couple of weeks. The focus more so on the bottom line. So again, this list is not complete. I don't have everything from every department yet. But after you deduct the things that departments have told me, you're still left with about 1.1 million. And I should stress, Mr. Chair, and that does include almost 500,000 going to BEP, the 10%. So that includes the 10% going to BEP. So even after you take out 500,000, there's still about $1.1 million available that there's no planned purpose at this point for. So I share this with you to hopefully assist in some decision about what could be sent to BEP for business assistance.
Mr. Chair, it sounds like Stearns and Sherburne County are doing more than 10%, is what I've read, right?
Mr. Chair, as we see this evolving around counties, it is true that many counties are going well above the 10%, well above the 10%. The percentages vary, but yes, many have gone right past that 10%.
Warren?
I don't like to spend it all, I wouldn't mind going 15% of that and then keep some until the end, and see what happens, when it comes, first part of December, But I would be, in favor of going 15%.
And Mr. Chair, that's exactly what I was thinking too, was jumping up to about 15%, and that would put us at about, what, 7 or 750?
Be roughly, yeah.
Roughly
Right,
around
yeah.
there, 725,
Something
750?
like that, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
and
Mr. Chair, if we jump to 15%, and what is it gonna take? 10% for administrative cost?
it may not take that 10%.
I'd start out at 8.
8%?
Let them come back and ask for more if they need it.
Well, it says up to 10%, so I think we're okay. I don't think they wanna go and spend any more money than they have to.
No, they
They wanna
won't.
save it for businesses,
They won't. The other part that I'm a little worried about is that, the time frame and what, if anything's left, it's gonna go back,
Right.
Yeah, I know.
There might be more, they might extend, who knows what happens,
Yeah, I mean, it could be an extended
Yeah.
deadline, we don't know, but we gotta plan for the deadlines that are before us.
There was one proposal out there federally to extend that deadline well into next year, because it looks like everybody's struggling with how to get
Right,
rid of it and spend
yeah.
it real fast, and that doesn't always lead to the best decisions,
Right, at a short, we found that out, especially in a short period of time.
Yeah.
The whole goal is to at least give something to all the businesses
Now.
in
Right.
Benton County.
Quickly, yeah,
Yeah,
Right,
and now.
quickly, and now.
Get it out now while they have their greatest need.
before they go broke, yeah.
Right.
And we could go back, if we did 15% and they used the entire 15% for businesses, we could go back and allocate their administrative cost
Yeah.
after that, right?
Yeah.
Again,
no.
it's really, this is totally at your discretion.
Okay.
I think,
Right,
You know what
now-
I'm saying is that if we did 15%,
Well, I thought,
which is 700 and some thousand, and they had enough demand, and we still had money left, can we go back and say, well, we can take another, 20,000 and go towards your administrative cost?
Well, I think to lead
No,
up
they
the
have to-
administrative costs regardless, but I think the extra money go back into round two.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah,
for
I-
bringing it to other businesses.
Okay.
That
Mr. Chair,
probably-
to make it not confusing, the 8% or whatever number we pick should be part of this
Right.
Yeah,
allotment.
it should be, yeah, right.
Let's
Yeah,
just keep it simple that way, then.
yeah, because it says up to,
If they,
yeah.
if they need, if they need more money, they'll come back and ask for it, I'm sure.
Right.
Yeah, I think they always look unfavorably on any organization that spends taxpayer dollar and charges more than 10% for admin. I think
Yeah, right.
that's generally a general
Right.
rule that
I
I've
agree.
seen. So
So the numbers at the bottom there in the yellow, so the 15% would be 735,000. Of that 735, 58,000, I think I heard, if I heard you correctly, it would be 8%. 8% for admin would be 58,000 of that 735.
up
That's what-
to,
Yeah.
That's what they'd have to work with, right?
Yeah.
You know, I imagine, my suspicion is that will be, you think about it, they have such a short period of time to manage this. You can't really spend that much money in that short period of time, so, I gotta believe that will be very sufficient for their administrative costs.
But you're gonna have marketing, you're gonna have legal, you're gonna have accounting,
Yeah.
divide that by 3, whatever, but
well, you
yeah.
might even pick up some of the costs of the new executive director, right?
Right,
Because-
and then some of that,
Yeah,
3-month salary of the executive director,
yeah, 'cause he's gonna be working pretty hard on
office
that.
rent. and-
Yeah,
So it sounds like if I heard some of the conversation earlier, and that is, there's a possibility the board would come back later, and if there are resources remaining, could potentially provide more to BEP.
That's
It just
correct.
depends.
Round
We'll,
two,
we'll
yeah.
see how things go.
yeah, right. We can get some out the door right now, and then,
Okay.
and round 2 may
There
come
could be
depending
phase
on.
2
You know,
installment, okay.
we gotta, yeah, like you
Okay.
said, we gotta go over all the other stuff that we had requested
Sure.
internally here too.
So,
So-
you just to wrap up, Mr. Chair, what I was hoping sometime here in the next couple of weeks, if we could have a committee of the whole and review this listing in greater detail. And, you may have noticed here at the bottom, so we'll add that extra amount for BEP. I should just mention that, I've received a number of emails and phone calls from nonprofits wondering, does Benton County have any resources available for nonprofits? Even a church called. There's interest, of course, in broadband. I think the issue is what can you do by December 1st? And, and of course, you've got all the various requests from county departments for some resources. And I think some of these are great ideas. So hope again in the next couple of weeks, you all can take a look at this and then hope we make some decisions. And then, that discussion then could lead to, well, okay, how much is left then for BEP or nonprofits and so on. I'm not really seeing a lot of organizations are sending out resources down nonprofits, some are. But again, based upon the emails and calls I've gotten, there's certainly a lot of demand out there amongst nonprofits, so.
Could we, if we did a phase 2, could we include nonprofits in the phase 2 then, towards the end? That would qualify, of course.
Sure. I think absolutely. One thing to think about though is just the logistics and time frame of getting that money out the door.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Who's gonna do that? So I think I would encourage you to make a decision perhaps earlier, so we can establish the who and the how you get this money out the door. Who's gonna do it? Is we gonna put that on BEP's plate to also do nonprofits? Is the county gonna do that?
Yeah, we can,
BEP's gonna have their hands full with this.
yeah, right, and, yeah, there's a lot of ideas out there.
I was gonna, seriously, I think one option you can consider, and won't become a surprise to Bob, is possibly your human service department.
Yep.
Could they be the entity to manage some nonprofit dollars? My thinking there is that, of any department in the county that knows the nonprofit community, it's human services. They know who's out there, they know what services they deliver.
Yeah,
That might be an option, is to ask your human service department to manage the nonprofit dollars.
that's what I was gonna bring up, that's
Yeah.
what, and we're gonna add it. I think part of the emphasis was to add that to existing programs that they're already administering, so.
Yeah, that's what Sherburne is doing.
Yeah, I think I read it someplace, I don't remember
Right.
what
They're
county it
building
was.
on top of things they already have.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so. Anyways, so if you're inclined to perhaps adopt that motion, so I can fill in the numbers for you.
Okay,
So the
Please do.
resolution, on item number 4, that blank would say 735,000.
15%.
And then item number 5, that blank would be 8%.
okay,
Filling in the blanks.
okay. And any more discussion on that?
I move we approve, authorize the chair to sign this resolution for the
Second.
CARES Act.
Okay, with those numbers in there, you have a second? Okay,
Second it.
oh, yeah, okay, Steve. Any more discussion? Hearing none, I'll call that question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Anything else, Monty?
Oh.
Oh,
Okay, thank you.
when did we have Nadine's on here? I didn't mark that down.
I believe it's next.
Next?
Yep.
Okay, I didn't remember where I had Nadine's item here. I didn't know if I had it after Human Services or.
Okay, so just a couple last minute things. Did you get the information?
Yep.
Yep, okay, sorry, I brought copies just in case. Okay. Okay, so first, item, I'd like to address with you is when I came to the board previously, we had a conversation about the CARES election grant money. We didn't officially approve the resolution, for me to apply for that funding. So I'm here today to ask, for a motion and approval, to apply for the CARES election grant fund, and also, to approve the resolution that is attached. If you recall, the county's share of the CARES election grant was $12,405.87. Of that, we have to put in a 20% match, which was $24,8117. So I'm here for the approval and a motion, so that I can get that application in. It's due by September 15th to apply for those funds. Do you have any questions for me on that?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
So a required grant match of $2,481.17. Monty, can that be, come through our CARES Act?
Yes.
Of our money?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, that match can come from the CARES grant. Yep.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that we did this the correct way, so that's why I came back. Because I don't believe that when I was here previously at the beginning of the month, we actually made a motion and approved. So,
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I make a motion to approve the CARES election grant and the resolution for the CARES election grant.
Okay.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Do we have any other departments that have separate resolutions specific to their department that we have to,
I'm not aware of any yet, no.
but so this is the only one that
Yes.
we have to do specifically? There's no other department that have to have a separate resolution to
Yeah, again, I
expend
can't
care
think
of?
of any so far, no.
Okay,
So-
all right, I was just wondering if there was.
Yeah.
yeah, two different
Okay.
grants at the
All
same
right.
time, so.
We have a motion and a second to approve the CARES election grant and approval of the resolution for the CARES election grant. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. You get one more item
One
here.
more item, all right. So I wanted to present you with, the idea of utilizing some of our CARES grant money, to purchase a optical scanning device to help assist with the increased absentee ballots that we are having to process due to COVID-19. As you're aware, for the primary, we actually sent out over 2,500 absentee packets, and of that, we received 492 absentee ballots back. That's a lot of manual labor involved in processing those absentee ballots. And I think I mentioned before that historically, in previous years, during a primary, we normally have about 100 to 200 absentee ballots that we process. So we had quite a huge influx. We're anticipating, what we're hearing is, double that easy for the general election in November. So far, as of yesterday and today, we've had 111 inquiries in 2 days for absentee ballots already for the general. So we're already getting the phone calls. A lot of people requesting to vote absentee for the general. We're gonna see high numbers for that election. So this equipment that I would like to purchase is in light of that increased absentee ballots, and that is all due to COVID. This equipment would process those absentee ballots electronically for us. And then, and it'll read write-ins, it'll read all the markings on the ballots, and we'll be able to load that to the state much faster, also allowing us to get the results in quicker. This equipment is, to purchase is just over $55,000. I do see it as an investment going forward for the county to get this equipment. I think we're gonna see more of an increase going forward with people wanting to vote absentee, even after COVID ends, and it doesn't sound like that's gonna come anytime soon. I also think that we're gonna see more of a push from some of our jurisdictions wanting to go with mail ballot processing. As you know, we have 2 jurisdictions currently that do mail ballot. It saves them the time of having to train election judges, pay election judges, processing ballots, having to be open on election, on the election date. So I think we're gonna get more requests from some of our smaller jurisdictions that are gonna wanna go mail ballot. This equipment that I would like to purchase would help with that as well going forward. So I see this as a good opportunity for the county to get this now, because we can utilize those COVID dollars and justify purchasing it due to COVID-19. Any questions or thoughts on that?
Yeah. What happened, you said you, 2,500 requests that you had, and you
Yeah.
got 400 and some back, what happened?
1,400, just over
1,400, okay, but,
1,400.
so what happened to the other 1,100?
They didn't return their ballots.
How many came in after the deadline?
So, so the deadline, yeah. So, on Wednesday, the day after elections, we received 46 ballots in the mail.
Okay.
And we processed those and included those
Yep,
in
yep,
with
yep.
our reports at the state. So what the state guidelines were, due to that last minute court order that changed everything,
Yep, yep.
is that depending on the date that we selected for our canvassing date would determine which ballots had to be included in the totals and which did not. We had already selected our canvass date for that following Thursday after the election, day 2. And so therefore, the guidelines given by the state said that you have to accept any ballots that came in the mail on Wednesday that were postmarked 8/11 and include those in your accounts. That's what we did. So we had 46 ballots come in that were added to our accounts before we held our canvass on Thursday morning. Now, on Thursday, we had approximately 25 more ballots come in that were postmarked 8/11 that were not included in those totals.
Okay, are those ballots opened up and looked at, or are they just
No,
tossed out?
nope, they're in
Yeah,
a sealed
okay.
box, yep, in the vault. So
Okay.
now going forward with the primary, or going forward with the general, the dates are a little different. The canvassing dates need to occur either between the 3rd and 10th day after the general election. So we have a longer time span in which to do the canvassing. So I have made contact with the state yesterday looking for some additional guidance regarding those mail-in absentee ballots and how we're gonna handle that going forward for the
So
general.
when you get these ballots in, and you can count them that day and get them done so they're out of the way, okay, so it's not all put on you at one day, you could spread it out over a period of time.
Right,
Okay, so the
right.
workload isn't quite as heavy that way,
Yeah,
okay.
so with the absentee ballots, the mail ballots, Commissioner Berkeley, historically, we were permitted to start processing absentee ballots 7 days before the election.
Yeah.
Due to COVID, the state extended it to 14 days before.
So we got time,
We
yeah.
are going to be allowed 14 days. We're
Okay.
going to need those 14
Okay,
days for
all
the
right,
general.
All right,
Mr. Chair?
yes.
My first question, on a lot of these things is what other counties doing? Are other counties doing this machine?
Yep, so, when I contacted the vendor last week about this equipment to try to get a quote, he said that I would be put on a waiting list because he's had a high demand, from other counties wanting to utilize the COVID dollars for this same equipment. They're all experiencing a higher, quantity of absentee ballots, and so there were several other counties. Currently, I think there were about 5 counties that are on the waiting list, and I had him put us on the waiting list for now, for this equipment. So, the hope is that they'll have it to us before the general. They, at this time, they're not gonna guarantee that it's gonna be here, before the general, but they're gonna do their best because they know that these counties need it to help process those.
One follow-up question, what is the number of absentee ballots or paper ballots would you think we're gonna have? What's your best guess?
That's, we've never been in this situation before, so,
But using the primaries ratio
So-
of increase, if you follow that forward, what number would you get?
so we had, I would say that we'll probably have at least 50% of our voters, vote absentee.
And how many voters,
We had 27% of our voters, for the primary vote absentee.
so the number I'm trying to get to, so how many people in Benton County typically vote for an election?
Oh, I'd say about,
Yeah, I would have to revisit the 16 numbers, the last time we had a presidential election to tell you that. We have just over 23,000 registered voters in the county.
And about 60% usually vote, or something like that? right?
Yeah,
okay, yeah, so,
That helps me get me the
Yeah.
number.
yeah.
How many thousand registered voters?
Just over 23,000 registered voters currently. And
Times
for the
0.6.
primary, we actually had 158 new
0.5.
registrants, that day.
So about 7,000 mail-in ballots, then if you take 50% of,
Yeah.
60% times 50%,
yeah,
about 7,000.
yeah, and, okay. Okay, Commissioner Heiner had a question?
So Nadine, did you check into if we could have the option to lease or rent the machine?
Oh, yes, I did. There is absolutely no machines available for leasing or renting. That was my first question. I wanted to know how much that would be. What they had available got refurbished and sold because of the demand.
So even if we approve this 55,000, we still no guarantee we're gonna have this machine come November anyway,
Right,
correct?
yep, still take that
What are,
chance.
what are our other options then? If we do not approve this?
If we don't
and
approve
don't
this,
get
then
this?
we'll manually process them the same way that we did. So this equipment is from the same vendor that we purchased our DS200s, our tabulators from. We would want to stay with the same vendor because the machines talk to each other and are programmed similar. So if we say no to this, then, you know, we'll just proceed forward with doing the manual labor of processing those absentees.
And you could throw this price, this 55,000 towards, getting people to help, correct? Election judges, temporary, to help?
Yes, yep,
Okay, one.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Ed and I met to canvass the votes the other day, and we got talking about this a little bit. We went and seen some of the spaces and some of the equipment they had to move on election day. This is a unique situation. We probably would never do this if we didn't have COVID dollars. Ed and I talked about some of the townships not using up their money, be a good place to use some of this money if they turn the money in. Is Montez gonna ask, is the money that the townships turn back, or if they don't use, to the county? I talked to some of the other commissioners in different counties, they figured that we could use that money then?
Yes, you could, right. So if they have unspent monies at November 15th, they're actually supposed to return it to the county, cities as well. And then we could use it for any lawful purpose under the CARES Act. That's right. We just have a really short period of time to do that, though. Basically, it's the second half of November. That's it.
So we thought it was a unique situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
Mr. Chair.
well, we've got a meeting coming up. We're gonna set a committee of the whole to go
Yes.
over all these requests from every department. We should probably add this to it. That'd be my
I don't think that, Spencer, and I don't think that the timing will allow us to do that. I think we have to make a decision on this today.
yep.
One other thing is that I think you're gonna see more mail-in ballots from the townships. Over the past couple days, I've had conversations with two commissioners from Morrison County. Right now, they have 5 to 6 townships, and they expect that to double before the next presidential election or next governor election that comes up here. And that's an ongoing thing, and this will be something we can keep and go forward with, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it probably
yes.
will be updated, or, you know, I guess I'd like
Right,
to know a little.
updates to the software, but
Yeah.
it is a piece of technology that
Right.
will help
And-
that
and,
voting
you know,
and election process.
A lease and maintenance agreement, I agree, that's better, but it doesn't look like that's a possibility right now. I just think maybe the opportunity's now and not, you know, maybe in 3-4 years, we'll have to purchase it anyway, so why not do it now as long as we got,
Yeah.
you know, can use some of the COVID money?
Well, you know, this is money that could be going out to business too, you know.
My personal feeling is right now that I think we're gonna have a hard time getting rid of all that COVID money. I just think that, you know, we're sitting with what, $700,000-800,000 besides what we allocated today. And why would we wanna give any of that back to the state? If we give $50,000 back to the state, that would've been 50,000 we could've used.
Well, I just thought we had time to add that to the list, you know, that we got coming up here. We're gonna have a
Yeah,
meeting on it.
I think if we want it in November, we gotta
Yeah,
act
if
today.
we want,
Well, we're already on the list.
we are on the list.
Yeah, so we're already on it. So by the time we meet, we could have that decision made along with all the other ones. We've had every other department that put something on that list. you
I'm
know,
on the
and-
list, on the waiting list, but if
Yeah,
one comes
but-
available and there hasn't been a decision made, then I'm gonna be passed over and it'll go to the next county. So, just so you're aware.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I got one more question. So Nadine, if all the townships are gonna go to mail-in ballots, do we get refunded from the township for that?
We will, there are certain expenses that we can charge back to the townships. I need to review the statutory guidelines on that again. So going forward, there is certain part of the mail ballot process that can be charged back. And that part of it, we would plan on charging back to them. So I can't
Mr.
tell
Chair, I
you
think
exactly
that's-
what those items are.
I think that's, the next step is, you know, they're saving all this money.
Right.
You know, we could just ask them to
Yep.
send it to us to help us pay for this,
Yep.
because we're doing their work, basically,
That's,
so.
that's where I was going with
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
Commissioner Bowerly.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, well, yeah, I'm a little afraid that it just might be a one-time phenomenon, and then we're stuck with a piece of, not stuck with, but we have a piece of equipment that's gonna be very underutilized. And, we're gonna have extra time to count these ones manually. We know when they come in. you're gonna have an extra extended period of time. You had it for the primary, you'll have it there. You know, you could probably do it that way too and be just fine this year and see how it works with other counties and then, you know, I don't know, that's 55
Yeah.
grand that's coming
I
from
mean,
some
it's,
business.
I agree, it's $50,000, and I look at it, that's a lot of money to spend on election equipment. On the other hand, it's not gonna come out of the basic budget.
Well, I think it
any-
is, because
anytime.
there's a match required and
No, there's no
No
match
match.
required for this.
No,
I just think that it's, you know, it's an opportunity, maybe looking at us right now to go forward and, you know, as the rural townships move towards mail-in ballots. So with that, Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we purchase this equipment.
I'll second it.
And a motion and a second to approve this, and the money to come from
COVID money,
COVID money, and no county dollars.
no county dollars.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I got another question, Nadine. So what percentage of efficiency will this help?
I was just thinking, how many nights are we gonna be here processing absentee ballots? You know, I would have to do some calculating on that and get back to you on that. I was just thinking the manpower it would take to process even 5,000 absentee ballots, and we don't process those during the day, because it is a very detailed process, and we make sure that our numbers are tying and right on. So we never process absentee ballots until after hours. So we have we had 4 staff here almost every night for 2 weeks straight, plus a full 8-hour day on Saturday before the elections, that we had to be open to the public. And those are, that time frame is what it took us to process those 1,400 ballots that we had to process. So,
And we're paying overtime?
yes, we're paying overtime.
Thank you.
Okay, any more discussion? Call the question, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion's carried. I wish it would have been in the regular process.
Thank
but
you.
I don't like to see these things outside the process. It's not fair to the rest of them. Okay, at this time, we're gonna recess the county board meeting, turn it over to Commissioner Peschel for the Human Services Board.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to convene the Human Services Board, approve amend agenda.
I would like to add one item. You should have a copy of that.
Yep.
Okay, we'll put that in. Motion to amend the agenda.
I move to amend the agenda and add the Zing Tree annual subscription.
All right, second.
I'll second it.
All signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried. Consent agenda to approve the irregular minutes of August 4th, 2020. And number 2, to approve the 220 contract renewal milestone for coordination of Benton County Children's Mental Health Collaboration.
Move to approve.
Second,
Second?
discussion. If not, all signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried. Bob?
All right, the one item I'd like to add is that, as we've talked about in the past, Human Services is going to look at implementing a call bank. And one of the processes that we did was we looked at what other counties were doing and so forth. And one of the things that we noticed was that quite a few counties use what's called Zing Tree. And that's a smart online platform that helps us to build diagnostic systems, process instructions, phone scripts, troubleshooting, decision trees, et cetera. And the idea behind this is that some of the things that I found out about this that's really intriguing to me is it would be able to allow us to work through a process that typically might take 10, 15 minutes for one of our workers to work through. It reduces it to 5 minutes, and what that's gonna do is it's gonna allow us to take approximately 50% of the phone calls and resolve them in a matter of minutes rather than multiple minutes. And some of the one of the things that is really intriguing about this is that we take these phone calls, we run them through, and we are gonna be able to bring our workers up to date on this system within 3 to 6 weeks. And typically, our workers take 3 to 6 months to have a caseload assigned to them. And this would allow us to be able to do it. And Sherburne County's, or excuse me, Stearns County says that they, after 3 weeks, they are having their workers, their brand-new workers successfully work through this with a 90% resolution rate on each phone call. I'm not gonna pretend that that's something that we're gonna be able to do right out of the chute, but I do believe at some point in time, we can expect to resolve 50% of our phone calls within a matter of 5 minutes. And we would be able to bring our new workers up to speed to be able to help us within 3 to 6 weeks versus 3 to 6 months. So I think that everything about this, and then the bottom line is the fact that it's $3,600 a year, which I think is well, is quite a bit of a return on our investment. So I ask for your approval to allow us to move forward on that.
Mr. Chair? Is this, can this be paid through a grant system or not?
We're going to use, we're gonna attempt to use COVID dollars. It's not on the list that you saw, but there are a few things that we're gonna look at doing as well. And I think we've submitted that to Monty, but it was after his spreadsheet, so that would be COVID dollars, yes.
Is this something, Monty, that is probably realistic for COVID?
Probably.
I think so, because you're changing the way you're doing business. You're attempting to interact with the customer more remotely rather than in person. So I would say most likely, yeah. I'd be fine.
To expound on that, one of the situations that we're at is we're going to attempt to have as many of our customers call us rather than stopping in.
Right.
And that's something that we're going to send out a letter at some point in time, or communicate with them to work with us over the phone versus, so it's directly related, yes.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve.
I'll second it.
Any more discussion? Not, I'll call the question, all signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried. Anything
That's all I
else?
had, unless
Alright.
there's any questions.
Any update on the county COVID?
We're doing better. I think that Nicole just gave us a briefing Monday, and she says that our numbers are starting to trend down. But then I heard some rumblings that we had another little outbreak, so I don't have any specifics on that, but I think we'll see with our numbers, so.
I know that Foley School is gonna go K
Yep.
through 12.
Yeah, and there's a mixed bag on that as far as other schools, so we'll just have to see what happens. Hopefully, we're using safe measures with our students, and that'll
Yeah.
work out well.
All right, thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Okay, turn it back to the chair.
Okay. Next item we have is commissioner meeting updates. Who wants to start?
Yeah, I just got a couple, Mr. Chair. Last night we had a finance committee over to, at TRICAP. Just one thing on the CARES thing, you know, Sherburne County and Stearns County, they was gonna send some CARES money to TRICAP, you know, both counties. And the director called them back and told them she couldn't accept it because she had no way to spend them. So that was part of the problem. I don't know if it's a problem, but, and then the other thing over at TRICAP, they lost their finance director. It wasn't a good fit for her, so they just parted ways, I guess. We just hired her a little while ago, so couldn't handle it. Last Thursday, we had a planning commission meeting. We had a request for an elevation on Watap Township to build a addition to a house in the floodplains. And then we had another solar system right here out of Foley, what was in the growth area, but Foley didn't seem to care too much about it because it was pretty wet. It's over in Dave Novak's, and they figured it wasn't fit for building anyway, so Foley had no opposition on that, so. And that helps our tax base a little bit, so. That was all I had, Mr. Chair.
Okay, anybody else?
I've had a couple meetings, but I'll let you talk about one, Mr. Chair.
I was hoping you'd do that.
Advisory Committee, you like when I do that. We had Solid Waste Advisory Committee last night, talked about our solid waste management plan update. We discussed our amnesty days of good, bad, of how it went, and moving forward for next year, what more ideas, better ideas, and hopefully we're not in the same situation as we are now. Thank you.
Okay.
Sure, I'll go next.
Yep, go ahead.
Just the time, I'll be brief. Got a lot of people waiting to hear. We had an APO meeting. We approved our next four-year plan, which includes 2 projects for Benton County, so we're happy about that. And we gave our executive director a review. He's doing a good job. That's all I have.
Okay, got
I
anything?
just had a couple of small ones. One is that on the 5th, we are still working on the lease with the city of St. Cloud for Great River Regional Library. It just seems to be like you're turning your wheels and you try to send things out there and you get things back. It just hasn't gone anywhere for, I think we're on 5 years now, running without a lease, and it just don't go. And then, yesterday morning, we had an extension meeting. There's, as you know, we're replacing one of the personnel in extension, and we had some backlash because we weren't unable to meet or do the interviews in person. That one of the counties was going to pull their funding, but I guess that's been resolved since then, so we're moving forward with that one also, so that's all that I had. And then Spencer had Micah. I didn't make Micah this time around.
Okay. Yeah, well, Mike, I think it might be some things we've heard already, but it doesn't look like a bonding bill's gonna go through on this session because they wanna take a little time out in between when they let the bonds out for the previous year, so if there's a period and they don't wanna mess up their credit ratings or something. I'm not sure I understand it all, but, and let's see, one other item I wanted to bring up that was, I don't know, the meeting took forever the other day. I thought it'd be a short meeting. They said it'd be a short meeting and it was pushing 2 hours, so I don't know, I think the meetings on Zoom take a little bit longer. And it had to do with, some of the economic news, yeah. The US economy, they said, shrank by 32.9% key GDP projections. And we were trying to put in context what this budget shortfall at the state level will be relative to other budget shortfalls. I think, Warren, when you remember with the big budget shortfall we had on when we first got on, that as a percentage of the total budget, this is actually smaller. And I did not realize that. So there's a lot of sensationalizing about some of these things. And I think that came out in our, luckily we have some former state reps that are our lobbyists and some former state reps and senators that are on our MICA board. So they made sure they brought that part up, so that was interesting to hear that. So you gotta put everything in context, I think, and try not to sensationalize everything. And then on the career solutions, we had whenever we have Luke Greiner from Deed and his statistics, it's always interesting. And he said, this rebound has been pretty good. So sometimes you hear some pretty good news. We're actually, the number of people employed today is the same as it was in 2014. If you believe that. Yeah, so, we had a deep down and now it's coming back up. And overall, the private sector has bounced back more than our nation's overall. And we had job declines of 9% in Minnesota compared to 9.6 nationwide. So Minnesota's unemployment rate dropped, was 9.4 and it was down to 8.5 in June. I don't know what the latest one is, what it came. I haven't seen that. And also he gave a statistic that 92% of Benton County is served by internet. So I didn't know. It seems to be, that was even a little higher than our surrounding counties, so. That was just
I don't think it's.
I don't know where that 92%.
I don't know where it came from, but this is what, I figured
That's what the
that sparked some response, but that's
That's what the suppliers are saying, but it's not true.
yeah. But anyway, that's what I got here, and, they had a chart of the whole state, and what was served by it, and we're a little ahead of the other ones. And that may be, if we got a percentage of the population that all lives on one side of the county, basically, that have good internet service, that may be what the statistics skews it toward. But also, they had, some of the racial implications of the unemployment that's in our area here, 72% of the black labor force has applied for unemployment insurance, 24% of the white, and believe it or not, 47% of veterans in the labor force, 18 to 64, have applied for unemployment benefits. I asked the question, why is that, and he didn't have an answer for it, so I don't know why. But, so we'll see where this all ends up, but I wanted to share that data. Here's the, yeah, here it is. I can show it to you later on. We don't have to show it now, but anyway, that's big. Yeah, we got a public hearing coming up, so. Okay, that's all I had. All right. Any other business, any commissioner concerns? Motion, if there's no other business to come before the board?
Committee of the whole.
Oh, wait, we gotta have committees of the whole. We gotta set up the meetings on the other stuff that we had here today, Monty, right?
Yep. So let's see.
Yep.
So again, I think time is of the essence when it comes to CARES funding.
Yeah.
Again, you saw the list from departments up there. It'd be good to have a discussion about CARES sometime within the next week or so, if
Yeah.
possible.
Yep.
Yep.
So how is your early next week looking?
Next Tuesday works for me.
Yep.
Tuesday,
Here too.
Yep.
the 25th, okay?
Yep.
How about first thing,
Yeah, 9
I don't
o'clock.
care. What time do you want it?
9 o'clock.
9?
9 o'clock? Okay. So on that agenda, then it'd be the CARES funding, and I'll have the list from departments, and I'll ask, if a department has an item on the list, I'll ask them to attend, to offer some additional explanation on it. If I could, I want to I think Steve mentioned, he wanted to ask you all to, as a group, take this security training. So maybe we can just tack that on to the end,
Yeah.
Yep.
and you all can, as a group, do that security training.
Perfect.
Okay, so that takes care of that one. Of course, before you adopt the proposed budget levy on September, let's see, 15th, it's important to have a work session on the budget levy. So, I think it's probably too much to add that to the CARES Committee of the Whole. So how about perhaps that following week, sometime the week of August 31st or August 31st would be best, I think.
Monday, is that a Monday? Yep.
Monday the
Just-
31st.
Just to
Okay.
give everyone a heads up, I will be on vacation September 8th through the 20th, so.
Okay, let's do the 31st then.
31st.
So August 31st,
As of right now, we have a scheduled interviews for the Tri-County Extension Committee. That's supposed to take like 6 hours.
ouch. That same day? Okay. So how about Tuesday, September, oh, that's board meeting day.
How about Wednesday?
How about Wednesday?
Yeah.
Wednesday the 2nd?
Yep.
Yep,
Wednesday the
that'll work.
2nd. So again, the purpose there is to review the base budget, make some decisions in about departmental budget requests, and decisions, of course, on the overall budget levy for 2021. And I think that's pretty much it. I know sometimes do we need to talk about elected official salaries? No. That discussion can wait until December.
Yep.
That can wait until December. We usually review fund balances, maybe the CIP, some things like that. So September 2nd, 9 AM. Okay? Just two more things for you. AMC Fall Policy Committee meetings, they're all online, but we could certainly set those as committees of the whole. Okay, I don't have dates here. I'm seeing.
I think it was the 15th, 16th, or the 16th, 17th, and 18th.
Yeah.
Yeah, they actually had some on the 16th, I
Yeah.
noticed, yeah. So you probably have to make
You gotta
any of
email
those
them.
days that you attend any
You
of
gotta
those
email
as
them.
a-
Yeah.
as a potential call.
So as soon as we see information on how these are gonna be conducted, we'll send it to you all.
We can wait on setting this cow, right?
Right.
Yeah, we
The-
probably could.
The part I see is that, you know, whether you're on general government or environment or public safety, you know, you can probably work them into whichever your committee that you're on, so you don't have
Yeah,
to.
they
I-
emailed us already.
You know,
Right.
I guess you probably see what I'm seeing.
Right.
I
Right.
see a general
See,
session
mine's on
September
the
10th,
10th. I got the,
and then
transportation.
also sessions on Monday the 14th, Thursday the 17th,
Yeah.
Friday the 18th if needed. So,
We could do that, we
Let's
can
do
do
that.
that next
let's
time.
do that next meeting.
Yeah.
Let's-
okay, I just
let's-
wanna make sure y'all had this on your
We got
calendars. And as soon as we see how it's gonna be done, I see it says online, so probably Zoom. AMC tends to use Zoom a lot.
Yep, it's gonna be on Zoom,
Yeah, we can set the,
through my emails.
all those inclusive
You know,
dates.
so I just one thought for you, and that is, you know, if you all wanna be here to, you know, use this technology, or if you wanna do a course at home,
Oh,
fine too. Anyway, I guess it sounds like we can make that decision later, but we're certainly willing to, you know, get it all set up for here,
Yeah.
if you wanna participate
sure.
here.
Yeah, the general session.
Mr. Chair, we got a lot of people waiting.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, let's,
Okay. Vicky, is that it?
That's all I have.
That's
Motion
it.
to accept
That's
the
it.
Committee of the whole, Mr. Chair.
I'll second it.
any more discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion is carried. No other business come before the board, a motion to adjourn to be in order.
So move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, we are adjourned. Meeting 1, now meeting 2.
Rain, you got 5 inches?
Yep,
We got 5 inches last week?
at least 4, yeah.
Yeah,
We got 5,
we got
Five.
5.
yeah.
That's it, we had 2.45 and 1, so 3.45. Mark's in really good shape right now.
Yeah, we got plenty.
Yeah.
That's enough.
Yeah.
If you want the full potential of bean crop, you need one more. I need one more probably in 10 days, eh?
We gotta wait for Steve there.
Yeah, I think they're in.
Michelle's on, she's on too.
Good.
Michelle is with us by go-to meeting.
Oh,
Okay.
good, okay, that's good. That's good, keep us,
And Garrett, our consultant from Houston, is here too by go-to.
okay,
That's his presentation that's up there.
oh, okay,
He's with us by phone.
okay.
Yep.
Well, as soon as Steve gets back, we'll start here.
And we've left the live streaming going, so.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, now, here we go, now we. Okay, I'm gonna, call the meeting of the Benton County Ditch Authority to order, and first time we have to approve the, amend the agenda. I would suggest that we probably put that County Ditch 3 after items 5 and 6, that's an update, because these people are sitting out in the audience for the, public hearings. Is that all right with everyone?
That's a good idea.
So,
Motion to approve the agenda with the addition, Mr. Chair, of.
with the change?
Yeah, with the change.
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. I think I'm gonna get this, see if I get this right now. The right order here. This gets a little confusing once in a while.
Minutes.
So,
Mr. Chair, we get our minutes.
oh, the minutes, yeah. Okay, the minutes of the last meeting,
Yeah. Motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
okay.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay. Next item we have is a public hearing to receive public comment with regard to the engineer's report to reestablish the drainage system records pursuant to Minnesota statute 103E.101 subdivision 4A. County Ditch 14, located in sections 2, 3, 10, 11, 14, 15, 16, 21, 22, 23, and 26 of Maywood Township. Before opening the public hearing, we will first hear a county staff report. Chris, you want to take that?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So, you may recall that we had hired Houston Engineering to make a survey of the ditch and provide this engineer's report. And the engineer's report will be summarized by Garrett Munson of Houston Engineering in the presentation that he has prepared. So at this time, I'd like to go ahead and turn over the meeting to Garrett to provide us with a presentation on the engineer's report for County Ditch 14.
Okay. Very good. Garrett? you
Good morning, Board of Commissioners. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. As Chris mentioned, today's presentation is going to be overviewing our engineer's report on.
That's really hard to understand, Garrett.
A little hard to understand.
You're fine.
That's better, yep.
Yeah, that's a little better, yes.
Wonderful. As Chris mentioned, I'll be giving an overview of the engineer's report on the record reestablishment for County Ditch 14. And I'm going to start that out with just a brief primer for the sake of everybody in the room and online on public drainage system management as a whole, and then we'll get into the meat of what we found in our review. So Benton County serves as the drainage authority for County Ditch 14. What this means is that Benton County, as a drainage authority, is tasked with administering Minnesota statute 103E as they manage the system. The drainage system is actually owned by the landowners. That can be confusing when people hear County Ditch. county acts in a, management format similar to a fiduciary, where they are managing or administering that system in the best interest of all benefited landowners. So as part of that, we need to review who are the landowners who benefit from the public drainage system, what that public drainage system is, its needs, and how to best serve those landowners. So there are lands that are set, they are on the roll, and they are the lands that have the right to bring water to the ditch. Within reason, of course, the ditch has drainage design criteria. And then assessed landowners are the ones who can request action by the drainage authority. So there are a number of petitions that they can bring forth from Minnesota Statute 103E, including the petition for repair, or to be added into the system, or petition out of the system, things like that. At Houston Engineering, we like to talk about drainage system management as a cycle. And this is what we consider to be step one of the cycle, is getting the records for the system in line so that we better understand what the system actually is. It can be confusing on the ground when you're looking at ditches to know what is a county ditch, what is a private ditch, or a judicial ditch, and where one might stop and another one begin. There are situations where sometimes there'll be a private drainage system continuing upstream from the end of a public drainage system. And it's important that the county understand, as the drainage authority, where their jurisdiction extends to, so that they aren't completing activities that are outside the scope of maintenance or repair unknowingly, or encumbering damages on a private landowner for cleaning out a private drainage system which wasn't under their purview. So it's important to have these records and common understanding of what the public drainage system is. It also helps guide certain thresholds around repairs and maintenance versus improvements, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But through that cycle, once you understand what the drainage system is, then you're better able to comprehensively inspect the system, to understand the financing of the system and how different activities are paid for on it. And then when you have that understanding of the system in your hand, you can better approach regulators and agencies for policy and permitting. And all of that helps build up to any projects that are undertaken on the system. And then we call it a cycle because once a project is undertaken, it's important that the details of that project get incorporated into the drainage system record so that future management decisions are based on the most recent information. So one of the responsibilities undertaken under Minnesota State statute is this opportunity for a reestablishment of the record. And that's Minnesota Statute 103E, 101, Subdivision 4A we're looking at here, where the drainage authority, after completing a review of the record, may order to reestablish the records, and that defines the alignment, cross-section, profile, hydraulic structure locations, various pipe materials, dimensions, and elevations, or right-of-way of the drainage system, as originally constructed or subsequently improved. So that originally constructed or subsequently improved is important because it's not only how the ditch was originally built, but any legal action that has been taken after the fact to modify the drainage system, whether that's as part of the construction of the system, as part of a repair or an improvement, any kind of changes that have been made through a legal proceedings or hearings to alter the drainage system. So what record reestablishment means is we're defining where the drainage authority can do work. And I said that's important in terms of, step one of getting these records, to know what is actually under the jurisdiction of the drainage authority. Making sure that you understand what the maximum level of repair is to that as constructed and subsequently improved condition. And then ensuring that you're maintaining to that level of drainage. Any work beyond that as-built or that as-constructed and subsequently improved condition can have regulatory implications. So anything that's a repair or maintenance is exempt from the Corps of Engineers permitting. However, if you're doing an improvement, now you need to consider some of those other agencies like the Corps. Wetland mitigation criteria, if you're doing a repair, you're exempt from all wetland impacts other than type 3, 4, 5. And if they're there's a wetland that's been persisting for less than 20 years on the landscape. If it's a repair, you don't have to mitigate. Some of those exemptions go away if you're doing improvements and things like that. And then also evaluating potential downstream impacts. Of course, if it's a repair, you're restoring the drainage system to what it once was. You're not placing any increased burden other than what was already considered at the time of establishment or alteration. However, if you're going to do an improvement or something like that, where you're deepening or widening the channel, now you need to evaluate what are the potential downstream impacts of increased drainage from this area. So that's why it's really important to understand what the current legal status of the drainage system is in terms of its cross-section and slope and right-of-way and all of that, so that these decisions can be made in a way that doesn't exceed a repair unknowingly. So when we go through these record reestablishment processes, we initially start investigating the historic records. Sometimes these records are in great detail. If they are, sometimes these processes aren't necessary for reestablishing the record. However, in most cases, these historic records, for whatever reason, are found to be incomplete, whether that's because there was a fire back in the 20s or a flood in the 50s or who knows what, or if they're in a box in somebody's attic and we're just not aware of it, these records can get scattered around or destroyed. So it's important to look at what is available and then complete field survey to look at what's on the ground. And then based on those two lines of evidence, put together with this as constructed and subsequently improved condition. And that's where we come in as the licensed engineer. In this state statute, this process needs to be undertaken by a licensed engineer looking at these lines of evidence. And then throughout that, we then describe the right-of-way of the system as we understand it, summarize all that in our engineer's report, and present it to you today in the public for this continuation of the public process. So a brief overview, CD14 is located in Maywood Township. It's approximately 9 miles of open channel ditch. This drainage system was established in 1915, so it's over 100 years old. It has a main trunk and 6 branches, although you will see branches numbering up to 7. One branch was never constructed. And then there was a small repair at the downstream end, about 400 feet were repaired in 2004 as it drains into CD9, which is immediately downstream of this system. So that's important to know too, is that there's another public drainage system that receives the drainage of this system. Just noting that it is likely that there may have been cleaning completed over time, whether by the county or a private landowner. However, there's nothing in the record of it there being an official repair by the county other than that downstream 400 feet in 2004. So when we're looking at the benefited area of CD14, we're looking at this purple line on the outside is the drainage area. So you can see that this public drainage system drains about 3,300 acres. However, the benefits for this system are still based on the 1916 Viewers Report, within which they identified just over 1,300 benefiting acres. And those acres reside within the blue 40-acre tracts on here. One thing to note is that just because that 40-acre tract is blue, that does not mean that all 40 acres are currently on the benefiting rolls. Rather, it could be only 3 acres within that 40, or it could be all 40, or some measure between the two, where the viewers, when looking at this in 1916, made the opinion that certain acres benefited from the drainage system, meaning that they had an improvement or an improved drainage condition based on the existence of the public drainage system. What we've seen is, of course, agricultural practices have changed a lot in the last 100 years. And oftentimes when we go through these exercises of reestablishing the record and we complete this review of the drainage area, there are very few situations where a redetermination of benefits would not also be advantageous, where a portion of the drainage system is paying for the current repair and maintenance because they're on the rolls, when in fact through tiling or private drainage practices, many more lands also benefit from the existence of the public drainage system. I'll note that that does not mean that the public drainage system needs to cross that land, rather that the public drainage system acts as an outlet for that accelerated drainage through those private drainage practices. So it's our opinion in looking at this figure that a redetermination of benefits may be prudent. So then as we're looking at this as constructed alignment, that's where we're reviewing the established alignment. That's the best available record to us. Here's just a snapshot over the right of what this looks like. Of course, this was a large plan sheet that got cut up into smaller PDFs, so there's a little bit of jigsaw going on here as some of these overlap. But we look at those original alignments and we compare that to any kind of construction documents and as to what's on the ground. Through our review of the construction documents, we found that a small adjustment was made to branch 1. That's noted over here on the right, but we'll discuss that in greater detail later. And then it was also noted that branch 4 was never constructed. For whatever reason, that was decided to be removed from the scope of the public drainage system. And generally, what we see is that the current alignment, as we see it on the ground today, does reflect the records available and therefore the as constructed subsequently improved condition. And then we go into the field and we do our field survey. So not only are we surveying the cross-section and the alignment of the channel, but we also complete soil probes to identify the hard bottom of the open channel pitch. In some situations, this is very obvious, where you can push a probe down and you can feel where accumulated organic material meets a more granular virgin hard bottom. And you'll see throughout later slides in the presentation, we have these circles with a hash through them, calling out where these soil bores exist in comparison to the profile. And I'll break this down in greater detail in future slides. So what we do is we compile the information that we gathered during the field survey, both the current bottom and the probe hard bottom, and we do a statistical analysis where we compare stationing from the historic documents and the grades and elevations of the, as designed channel bottom in a arbitrary datum. So oftentimes there's just a stake in a tree and then everything is in reference to that. And what we'll do is we'll fit that design profile to a mean sea level datum that matches with the soil borings collected throughout the survey, and see how that jives in terms of, culverts in the area, the other surrounding landscape, depths that are expected from cut sheets and things like that. So we do the statistical analysis and create the best fit of the design profile to the data we find in the field to approximate that as constructed profile. So as we dig into that, what we find is, starting here with the main trunk, identifying this area where you can see this is the downstream 400 feet that was repaired in 2004. Show that here. We have the alignment of the public drainage system. We've restationed it to be from 0 at the downstream end, extending upstream. And you can see other branches labeled on here where they break off. And then, so this alignment aligning with what we see from the overhead aerial imagery as well with the historical records. And then here we can see a solid line that we're calling the AXIC profile. That's the as constructed and subsequently improved condition profile. So that's the grade of the drainage system as we're finding it. And then this dashed line that you see here is the existing ditch bottom. So you can see in some areas that's very close, where the drainage system is in generally good condition from a grade standpoint. Then we also have structures that were surveyed in the field reflected on the plan drawings. So we'll go through here and just kind of lay out what we found in the field. So continuing upstream, of course, we see the continuation of the grade and the alignment. One thing I'll note is, center line bottom elevations are taken approximately over 200 to 400 feet, except in situations where it's very wet and access is difficult. So some of these stretches might look a little more like there's been connected dots, if you will. So it's important to recognize that although we have survey that's not necessarily indicative of every high point, hump, beaver dam, or anything that could be on the drainage system. That's where it's important to listen to the landowner, bring forth complaints or any information they have on beaver activity in the area or any large bank failures or stumps in the ditch that may have been missed during any kind of field effort leading up to this. But what you can see is we are seeing areas where there are sediments or material in the ditch above the as constructed profile and culverts that may be above that legal profile. In some of these areas, we have good information near highway culverts, and you can see where there might be a private culvert that's at the profile. There might be a public culvert that is elevated above the legal profile. We'll discuss how that happens a little later. But these are important to consider when you're doing highway projects through the area, making sure that you're referencing these drainage system records. And now that we have them in a modern datum, they're much more powerful in guiding decision making, not just on the drainage side, but also for highway planning and other infrastructure to make sure that we're properly accommodating for the public drainage system when those other projects are undertaken. So now we're reaching the upstream end of the main trunk, and you can see there's areas where there's a lot of sediment above the legal profile. Oftentimes, when you get to upper reaches of the drainage system, or if it's a smaller branch, the ditch more readily fills in, grows in with vegetation, which traps even more sediments, or that vegetation dies and adds to other organic material, and these ditches can very rapidly disappear from sight on the landscape. Although they're still there, their function is greatly impeded by the accumulation of that organic matter, vegetation. Here we can see branch 1, and this is the location where this dashed line here was the original as designed alignment. Then through the course of construction, they elected to reroute to the south a little bit here. Could be to avoid a stand of trees. Why spend a lot of money and effort clearing trees if you can just go around them? This is not uncommon where you see during the construction of a drainage system, especially for tile systems, why go through a hill when you can go around it and drain additional low area? So these are the types of things we're looking for in the historic record to make sure that what we come up with is an as constructed and subsequent improved condition reflects what was actually constructed. We'll just flip through some of these where you can just see the general condition of the drainage system, undulating either above or below the drainage system. One of the things I want to note is even if there's an area, like in this situation, where the current ditch bottom is below the as constructed, that does not mean that the drainage system is necessarily fully functioning in that location. There are a number of factors that can impede drainage in a ditch. Not the least of which is vegetation. Some cattails or grass growing in the bottom of the drainage system can greatly reduce the amount of flow that can go through that drainage ditch. I'm sure you're all very aware of seeing this happen, whether it's in a roadside ditch or a public drainage system or even your front yard. If you mow that grass, water moves quickly. If you excavate it out to a clean channel bottom, that changes the roughness or the hydraulic resistance in the channel, and water can get through a lot quicker. So those are other important things to consider when doing inspection and maintenance activities, is making sure that there's a clean channel that's at the design or the as constructed grade. We'll just quickly go through some of these other systems, and at any point you can throw out a question or pause to look at something that captures your attention. There's a number of these short branches where you can see these soil borings line up very nicely with a statistical shift to that design grade. And in some other areas, you might see soil borings that are very low. That could either be a pocket of peat or some other material, or it could be an area where private or public excavation occurs that over-excavated the channel at some point in time. Here you can see branches 6 and 7 actually move through some more wetland type areas. that's important to understand when we get to some of the regulatory implications of any activities moving forward. And that's where having this profile is very important to understand, especially in the case here of Branch 7, where you see, some open water ponding, and this is really a majority of wetland complex in here now. When you get some of those exemptions from certain wetland permitting, as long as it's a repair, it's very powerful to have this profile here that matches well with the soil boring, showing that at one point in time, this drainage system did exist at this elevation. So repair to that is exempt from certain mitigation requirements. There might be others that apply, especially in the situation where you have type 3, 4, or 5 wetlands, which would be open water wetlands, that still need to be taken into consideration, whether that means you repair to something less than the as constructed, or a shorter duration, not all the way to those open water wetlands. But regardless, this process has allowed to get the critical information that's needed to make those decisions in the processes moving forward, managing these public drainage systems. Why are some culverts higher than the as constructed? Oftentimes, what we'll see is, especially private culverts, meaning like a field crossing installed by a landowner, in the absence of any information around what the drainage system bottom elevation should be, you might pull aside some organic material or some grass, and if you find some granular or something that matches the surrounding elevation, it's kind of a move some material, roll the culvert in the ditch, and backfill, right? Nobody actively seeks to bury a 24-inch culvert into a foot of sediment to get to the legal drainage bottom if it's just going to fill in right away because the ditch around it is filled in. So often that kind of roll the culvert into the existing ditch bottom is what can lead to these situations, as well as just a lack of information guiding them on how to install those crossings, or whether they're even aware that it is a public drainage system that has a design grade that should be met with, going through some kind of permitting process to get that elevation. Additionally, some of the public roadways weren't in existence at the time of the establishment. Not everything was around in 1916, and Chris Burt probably point out some of those highways that were either constructed or reconstructed subsequent to that, and provided us some helpful records from the road side of things, showing where those culverts were placed and for what reasons. So it's important, like I said, moving forward, to have this information so that when construction or reconstruction takes place, the necessary steps can be taken to make sure that this, as constructed and subsequently improved condition can be attained through a repair. One of the important considerations of these public drainage systems is the right-of-way. It's important to understand that these public drainage systems do, in fact, have a right-of-way. It oftentimes is not reflected in any kind of viewer of easements or right-of-way because it's not inherently recorded on the parcel. However, at the time of establishment, damages were paid for not only the footprint of the ditch itself, but also the area required to construct and maintain the drainage system. That includes the side casting and spreading of spoils. So that right-of-way is implied and perpetual into the future, and those damages that are awarded are one-time at the time of establishment, and then were intended to compensate for future repair as well. So it's important that this right-of-way be kept free of any kind of permanent structure or anything that would preclude the drainage system from being repaired and maintaining the drainage that the benefited landowners need. So when we do this review, we take a look at the cut sheets, the cross-section of the channel, what would have been excavated in order to construct the ditch, and then based on typical side cast and grading practices, what would those spoil work limits be? And then try and ground truth that with evidence in the field of, can we see where trees were cleared historically by looking at some historic aerials, or looking at historic aerials to see if you can see any spoil bank or difference in ground elevation. And in some situations, like CD6, when we did that one a while back, there were clear lines of evidence. In CD14, sometimes it's a little more nuanced when we're dealing with some of these low-lying, more type 2 wetland areas where spoils that were side cast would, rapidly deteriorate and or get swallowed up into the surrounding landscape. But these are the right-of-way widths that we ended up with on this system, generally ranging from 60 to 75 feet centered on the channel. So that means from the channel center line, about 30 to 35, 40 feet in either direction is the right-of-way to public drainage system, and that's the area that Drainage Authority staff have for access to complete inspections and track through with equipment to do maintenance activities, including the clearing of trees and vegetation, in addition to placement of spoil, and then grading it out within that right-of-way without having to pay any additional damages. So that right-of-way here is mapped out. These colors correspond to different right-of-way colors. You can see a majority of the system is in that kind of 60 to 65 foot range in terms of right-of-way. So our recommendation, based on our findings in the field, is that the Board of Commissioners proceed with the order to reestablishment of the public drainage system following Minnesota Statute 103, 101. And then subsequent to that, we see conditions that point to a repair being necessary, where we have accumulated sediment, multiple crossings above or culverts above the constructed profile. So there are definitely opportunities to restore the drainage function of the public drainage system to serve those benefited landowners. It's also my understanding that there's interest in completing that redetermination of benefits, and we definitely find that that would be prudent. As I discussed in the earlier figure, expanding the benefited role from the 13,700 acres up to 3,000 plus would be a more equitable distribution of costs associated with both the repair report and any subsequent activity undertaken by the county, whether it be repair or simple maintenance activities. At this time, I would entertain any questions that the Board of Commissioners may have.
Okay. I think we should open the public hearing here.
If I may, before, Chair, I just was going to summarize Garrett's presentation. I enjoyed that, but I am an engineer, so I did. So in summary, this report, if accepted today, would establish the bottom elevation of that ditch and additionally the shape of what that ditch would look like. And that has benefits to the ditch system, whether we do a clean out next month or 10 years down the road. We'll be able to go back to this document, if accepted today, and say, nope, this is what the bottom elevation should be, this is what the shape should be. So that's the importance of having this reestablishment and establish that as constructed and subsequently improved condition of the ditch. So I just wanted to add that piece in.
Well, thank you for that, Chris. Okay, at this time then, we're going to open the public hearing. So is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address the Ditch Authority on this agenda item? So please give us.
Are we talking the river, are we talking the ditches, or
Well,
what are we talking?
well, could you, if there's anyone that wants to give us any
I'm a little hard to.
comments, okay.
I didn't
Pl-
catch on any of that.
Yeah, well, please come up and give us your name and address, and then we can maybe get some of those questions. I know I agree with you, I had a tough time hearing it too, so you kind of glosses over it after a while.
Yeah, I'm David Warner, I live on Benton County 9.
Okay,
I basically own the land about 100 feet off of 23 and almost to the next intersection.
okay.
This apparently affects me on 3 different sides because I got 3 letters on it. So I'm trying to figure out, are we talking the ditch? Or are we talking the river? Are we talking something man-made, or did God put it there in the first place?
Let Chris answer it.
Yeah, yeah. Chris, could you handle that, Chris? Yeah, 'cause that,
So County Ditch 14 is an open channel ditch that travels through mostly farmland in Maywood Township. So it's not identified as a public water. So it's not necessarily the road ditch, although there is a portion of it near Highway
That's-
23 on County Road 9.
Right.
That the road ditch is in the county ditch.
Yep.
But
And I
predominantly-
requested mine to be cleaned out 35 years ago, and I'm still waiting.
we were gonna get her.
I'm still waiting. That's quite a bit of my field, so.
That's what we're here for, yeah. Okay, is there Anyone else in the audience who wishes to address the ditch authority on this item? Okay, we got one gentleman coming up here. And so please give us your name and address.
Yeah, my name's Jason Aldrink, address 9296 185th Avenue. I appreciate what the county has done. Appreciate the effort you have put into identifying the ditch bottom, and I hope that you move forward with it.
Okay, thank you. We had one more gentleman here.
My name's Al Donabauer, 10112 175th Avenue Northeast, Oak Park. And I'm on the north end of the ditch, and I've got the branch number 7 that goes through my land. My question is, you know, we're talking about this elevation being set and stuff. Question I got is, what's it gonna cost us as the landowners for this improvement? And at what point does this improvement help me? Because the land that's south of me, going towards 23, if that doesn't get cleaned out, you can clean that ditch out and change the culvert and everything else, and it's not gonna benefit me, because everything is stopped up between 23 and my place.
Okay. Okay, I think, Chris, I think there's a couple things here. I think one of them's in the redetermination of benefits too, that,
Yeah, so.
that'll be the next public hearing, yeah.
Today, the action, if approved, would be to just accept the report. So that is not, the board is not authorizing to move forward with any excavation or hiring a contractor at this point. So the actual costs, estimate of what it would cost to clean out the ditch is still yet to be determined, and that would be with the ditch authority ordered a repair report. Now, we need to be careful, we just need to be cognizant that right now we're working under the repair statutes. In statute, there is a definition for an improvement. And what we're doing is establishing this report today so that we can repair in the future and be exempt from some of those regulatory agencies which would require us to replace and mitigate wetland impacts. If we were to move forward with an improvement, which is an entirely different action and has a different set of statutes, meaning an improvement as defined in statute would be deepening, widening, increasing the capacity of the drainage ditch. We would be subject to regulatory agencies like the Corps of Engineers, the DNR, Board of Water and Soil Resources, and may be required to replace any wetlands that are impacted. And then the cost shoots through the roof. So we're at this point, the only costs that have been incurred by the ditch system would be administrative costs to create this report. If this report is accepted, the next thing that we have on the agenda today would be to have a public hearing to have a redetermination of benefits. Right now, the only assessed landowners would be the property that was determined back in 1916, as indicated in the report. That was the last time viewers were appointed and determined the value of benefit provided by that ditch. And that's like I said, the next agenda item. But that would be the next step after accepting this report today.
Mr. Chair, to
Yes.
answer his question, we're not gonna clean out part of the ditch and not the rest.
No.
If we clean it, we're gonna clean the whole thing from top to bottom, so your water's not gonna be backed up, so, to answer your question.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, is anyone? Okay, come on up and give us your name and address, please.
Eric Jacobson, 7808 175th Avenue Northeast.
Okay,
So I got a couple records of, because when I purchased the land, my land from my parents in 90, there was on the south side of 52, it was all beaver dammed, and I worked with Bob Crizel, and we kind of went through all this board meetings and all that good stuff, and so I do have records on that, and at that time, it did benefit me, but I kind of felt guilty at the same time because it charged everybody from the existing, from when they stopped, for where they started, all the way across 23, which it affected a bunch of people and neighbors that I knew, and to me, it did very little benefit, but granted, their water does run through that ditch. So we took that, they removed all the beaver dams, and I guess the map ain't up there, but, so that was not on your map. So that was in 2003. And then working with Bob again, I had my ditch starting at 52. It went through my 40. Actually, it went through my 80 and then the 9 that went to the west to my county road, or township road. And then it went north again through my brother-in-law's. My accrued costs on that for to go through my 40 was $3,070. My brother-in-law's was a little less because he didn't have a branch through it. Bob recommended to me to do it this way because then we didn't have to go through and get everybody's assessed taxes and this and that. But at the same time, when they went through, maybe it's changed now, like the way they pay for the ditches, who actually uses it, you know, and yes, times have changed. There's irrigation systems installed, or drain tiles, and good, you know, it's not the 1900s anymore. But all of that does need to be assessed, and at the same time, if we were to stop at 52, I don't know the condition of my ditch. I think it's fairly well. When I get a down tree, I drag it out. I got all my ditches fenced off so the cattle can't cross them. But if we can go forward with ditch 14 to the north, it'll be stopped at 52, which to the south of me does need to be cleaned. Even this summer, I still had standing water in my ditch. I would guess over a foot because of the ditch to the south. And then when you go even further south to County Road 4, that's where I believe there's really no record of it being cleaned. So my thoughts on that, I would like to see it, if they're gonna clean it, start at the far as I can see. And what we've talked was 7 and 51. I believe there's record on that one.
That is, yeah, what Mr. Jacobson referred to is an entirely different ditch system. At County Road 52, it actually becomes County Ditch number 9. So that's I don't mean to joke, but that's a different set of proceedings, and we have to, because it's established in the record as a separate ditch system, we'd have to do this entire process for ditch 9. Not saying that we won't or we shouldn't. At this point today, we're just focusing on County Ditch 14, and it may be beneficial to continue and do the same process on ditch 9, which is south of County Ditch 14.
Yeah.
But would you start with this one, or would you start with 9?
Well, in the process, obviously, we're a lot farther along in County Ditch 14 because we haven't even initiated this process in County Ditch 9 as of today.
Right.
So,
So, I don't know, just my thoughts, and
Okay.
and at the same time, you know, I know that there would be less money put forward to clean out my section of ditch because it was just cleaned in 2007, and including my brother-in-law, so I don't know how you would split up the funds on that.
Yeah.
And myself and my brother-in-law paid that out of our own pocket. It took us 2 months to get it cleaned and it was done. That's why we went
Okay.
and did it ourselves, or we hired Vern Derlinger. So,
Okay.
it had to
Alright.
be a reputable excavator and all that good stuff, so,
Okay,
that's it.
thank you. Was there anyone else in the audience who wanted to address the ditch authority? Please state your name and address.
Randy Eilers, I'm on here on behalf of Mark and Irene Eilers on Benton County 4, address 16966 65th Street. Getting to Eric's point there of the ditch 9. We got a pasture there. This is the first year that cattle have been able to use the pasture because it's been dry. But this ditch that's County Road 9, which hooks on to 52s, but it's, like I said, first year ever that the cattle have been able to use it. Otherwise, it's, 3 feet of water in there all the time. And 25 years ago, they could use this. So I'm thinking by cleaning ditch 14 first, it's kind of gonna cause problems our direction. It's gonna be a lot worse. So I know I talked to Chris here about cleaning from 51
Okay.
going north.
Yeah. Okay. All right, thank you. Anyone else wishes to speak? Come on up.
Mark Radka. I own 8447 165th Avenue. I'm on the north side of Branch 1 ditch. And I'm wondering how accurate them assessments are with the elevation level and the proposed level. If you look at the charts, that nothing's been done with that ditch probably ever since it was dug. There's been cattle in that ditch for many, many years, not recently, but there's been cattle in that ditch for many years. If you look at the assessment of what they say, where the bottom of the ditch and the sediment, or whatever, most of the spots, they're showing it only looks like 8 or 10 inches coming out of there. I mean, come on, 8 or 10 inches when that ditch was dug back in, 1919 or 1940 or whatever. You take a look at just the amount of decomposition and stuff, not even to consider how much the cattle worked that ditch in. So I don't know what they're going off of. If they're going using the culvert level in Benton County 7 and going off of that, that's inaccurate. Because it seems to be whenever a county replaces a culvert, it's too damn high. And I would like to see it cleaned. Everything needs to get cleaned. It's a mess out there. And by cleaning it, yeah, it might create expense for you, but it's also improving everybody else's property. And the property is worth more. At least we can actually use the property then, instead of hatching mosquitoes and raising frogs.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, the last gentleman said something that maybe what didn't come across in the presentation about determining how to determine the bottom. And what Garrett had presented on is, they had staff go out there when they were surveying or after they surveyed and actually use a probe and a soil auger to try to find the hard bottom. And even if some of the drawings today show that the bottom of the ditch as it is today is close to the as constructed bottom, that doesn't mean that there's no work needed. This report will also establish the shape of the ditch. It may be today it's a V shape, and really when it was constructed, it was more of a flat bottom or an upside trapezoidal shape. So even if the elevation, we can't go deeper in certain locations, there may be an opportunity where we widen that bottom out and still increase the flow of water through different locations, so.
Can I say, so what time of the year did you assess that? Did you take borings? What time of the year were you out there?
It was this summer. I don't recall the
No, it wasn't
exact
this
date,
summer.
so.
It was
Yes.
last fall. You wouldn't even been able, you'd have to swim to get out there.
I don't believe that's
That was
correct. We
last
didn't have
fall.
we didn't have a contract with them. Garrett, are you still in the line? Do you recall when the survey occurred?
Last fall.
They were last
And there
fall.
were some areas, especially along the main trunk, where it was very wet, where there were stretches where we weren't able to capture survey because, yes, we would have had to swim. But overall, the as-constructed profile is based on those soil borings, which in this case actually had a very good fit with our statistical analysis, and not so strongly based on culverts and things like that. For those reasons that the landowner brought forth, they're not always reliable in terms of them being repaired or originally placed at the as-constructed ditch bottom.
And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Garrett, but there were culverts that were identified that were not at the bottom of the, or were not at the elevation of the as-constructed profile, meaning that they were set on sediment or higher than the bottom of the ditch. Would that be a correct statement?
Correct. That is definitely correct. So, looking at, this image here where we have a culvert above, this is on branch 3 at 90th Street. But in general, going through these profiles, you'll see that there are a number of structures. This is the one on branch 3. But even, for instance, here on branch 2, we're looking at being a foot above the channel bottom here, the legal bottom, and also on this structure up here. So it's definitely an opportunity. We're going through and cleaning is, a good option because it would restore that capacity of the as-constructed condition. And I just want to reiterate what Chris said initially in response to a couple comments is the approval of this process, the reestablishing of the record, is not an approval or an ordering of the next steps of repair, and definitely not of an improvement, but just accepting this as the basis for making those decisions moving in the future. So I just wanted to reiterate that.
All right, very
Look
good.
at the elevation in that screen, there's what, correct me if I'm wrong, but looks like there's almost 10 feet of fall there. Now we'll go to branch 1. No, go to,
Yeah, so this is branch 2, but yeah, 10 feet of fall across, what's shown on the page here.
no, go to branch 1. Okay, look in the middle of the deal, look. That's been pasture for how many years? Granted, there hasn't been cattle in there. And look, you're telling me that that's all the sediment that needs to come out from the bottom of the ditch? Very deep. No, there is no.
This is one of the situations where I think Chris recaptured it well too, that there's more than just the existing channel survey elevation that's guiding the capacity of the drainage system. This is where I was talking about, clearly this is heavily vegetated, a lot of grass, a lot of other things in here, that if you went through and cleaned this out, removed that vegetation, removed the sediment from the downstream end, there could be a restoration of the drainage capacity of that system. Especially you see here at the upstream end, we are showing a lot of accumulated sediment, but it's through this middle part that you were talking about, and making sure that these field crossings are properly sized. I mean, when we have a 42-inch culvert at the downstream end and a 48 at the downstream end, and then we move to a 15-inch, throughout here, and these private crossings with 15-inch culverts, there might be an opportunity there to reevaluate what the capacity of the crossing is.
To the left of that screen there, to the very left, up along Highway 23, you look at that farmer's field there. Initially, there was no ditch in there. When the state highway redid that highway back then, they put a culvert in there. They're dumping all that water to the south. There was no ditch in there. That field, that farmer used to be able to farm that straight through years ago. Now all that water's dumped across from the highway, went on the north side of the highway. That water is supposed to go basically to the west. There's enough fall there that that state ditch is supposed to take that water. So there's a couple things going on here. There's water shed that's going the wrong way too. And that affects everybody. I had to point that out.
I was gonna just add, the next step in the process would be to decide if we want to do a redetermination of benefits. And during the redetermination of benefits, that's where some of those issues get vetted out with landowner meetings, and there's an opportunity to discuss which way water goes. On paper or from the air, it looks like maybe water goes one way, but I've been part of ditch processes and some of the board members here where, due to tiling or something, it was thought the water went one way, but it actually went another way. And there's an opportunity during that process to vet that out and make sure that any water that eventually drains into County Ditch 14 that land receives an appropriate amount of benefit, for that. So,
Okay, very good. Okay, is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to address the ditch authority?
What was the average cut? Do we have that?
I don't know if we have that yet. That was something that we'd definitely be able to determine if we ordered the repair, which would be another, that would be more like a construction set of drawings than would be created at that point.
Okay. Is there anyone else that wants to address? Come on up and please state your name and address.
On repairing that, is everybody on that ditch gonna get charged their fair share because it's farmer owned? And the last time, us guys to the north, we got charged, but I was
Yeah,
told
that's,
that the guys down south didn't have to pay. They should have paid too because they got the water taken away quicker.
Same thing
If it
for
was
me.
doing its job, but it ain't doing it.
so,
And that's a big deal.
okay, I think, is there any, did he want to come and address the board on that, or at the
Do you wanna
public
go and
hearing?
address formally?
Because I wasn't sure I caught all that, or,
I'm not very good at this.
well, okay. I think this is under the redetermination of benefits, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm Roland Schaefer, and I live at 10454 175th Avenue Northeast. And the last time the ditch, they did some work on it, what was that, in 2004? I ain't sure on the dates, but I just went ahead and paid it so that county didn't have to monkey with the tax burden. But why do us guys on the north have to pay? This is farmer owned and everybody should pay. I didn't hear that addressed here.
Yeah.
I'm thinking the fair way of doing this would be that Benton County takes over the whole ditch system and pays for what has to be done and done it right. Right where I live, there's a 40 there. There's 4 new homes in there. This totally changes, and they're in the floodplain where the ditch is and stuff. With everything building, people building out of town and stuff, this changes the whole dynamics of this. And that's what we gotta look at, and it's not gonna get better, it's gonna get worse, because there's more people wanting to build out there. And they took 140 out of production, part of it, because basically I would've never built out there, but that's me, it's swamp. But that's what's happening.
Okay. Okay,
And if the county took over, they could control it, and everybody in the county would pay a little bit more, because the whole county is benefiting with the tax system and all these new houses going up. We're all paying.
okay.
Our taxes go up all the time, probably go up anyhow, but
Okay.
you'd feel a little better about it.
Okay,
And you'd be spreading it out, not just the people that have the ditch.
okay,
And
Well-
it benefits everybody in the county because it puts more money in the Benton County system.
okay,
That's all I got to
okay,
say.
thank you. Yeah. You know, anything else from anybody else out there? Anyone else wish to speak? If not, at this time, I'm gonna close the public hearing. And Chris, are there any emails, letters, or other communications to be read into the record?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we did receive 2 letters regarding this ditch. And I guess at this time I will, is that what the board chair would like me to do, to read them into the record
Yes,
then?
yes.
Okay, the first letter we received here, dated August 9th, 2020, from Leon and Julie Goner of 17746 75th Street Northeast, Oak Park, Minnesota. And the letter reads, Dear Benton County Ditch Authority, this letter is in response to your letter informing us of the upcoming public hearing on August 18, 2020 regarding Benton County Ditch number 14. Our public comments are the following. Our section of the ditch has been previously cleaned out and we also fenced it off. We do not feel we should be charged for cleaning of our section of ditch at this time. As we see it, the problem lies further south of our property. If you have any further questions, well, the home phone number is there, listed there. That was one letter. The second letter we received was submitted by Stanley Andreessen and Susan Andreessen of 8120 165th Avenue Northeast, Oak Park, Minnesota. And their letter reads as follows. To the members of the Benton County Ditch Authority, in regard to the engineer's report to establish the drainage system records for ditch number 14. We purchased our property in 1997, and according to your records, our property exists at the confluence of branches 1 and 2 of ditch number 14. The addendum contains 2 pictures of the confluence of those branches. Any reasonable person would not see a drainage ditch in those pictures, nor if they came out to view the property. Any reasonable person would see a wetland or more colloquially, a swamp. Some additional information that might be helpful as you consider reestablishing a ditch to drain many acres of wetland and the associated damages that we as property owners would like you to consider. When we approached county officials in 1997 with plans to build on the eastern side of the property up on the hill, not too many of these in Benton County, with a southern exposure, we were told that we may not build a driveway to cross the wetland to reach that location, and there would be no viable solutions to build in our desired location. While that site had well-drained soils that could support a standard individual septic system, we were informed by county officials that the only building site we could access, immediately adjacent to County Road 7, would require a mound septic system at a substantially increased cost. Additionally, our initially drawn home plans included a walkout basement to maximize livable space in our home. Since we were required to confine ourselves to a very small buildable site, our plans needed to be redrawn at a substantial cost to incorporate a second story and not a basement. We have been living on a less desirable site in a less desirable home for over 22 years because we were not allowed to cross a wetland. In the early 2000s, we had a geothermal heating and cooling system installed. Prior to having the system installed using a horizontal boring machine, we consulted with the county at the best location to install the closed-loop piping was out into the wetland near a culvert on County Road 7. At that time, we were told that the ditch had not been maintained in over 40 years and that for practical purposes it had been abandoned and there would be no problem with locating the loop there. So that is where the underground piping was installed. Through the years, we have learned and embraced the ecological environmental advantages that the wetlands offer and have worked with the Benton's SWCD/NRCS to plant a small riparian buffer strip. We also have enrolled the land in the CRP and would lose income if these lands are drained due to swamp buster rules. We are not in favor of reestablishing this ditch unless there can be some reparations for the damages we have suffered and the future damages we and the environment will incur by draining these well-established wetlands, despite numerous laws, rules, and regulations at the local, state, and federal levels designed to protect wetlands. That concludes the written correspondence that we have received.
Okay. Is there any state agencies, cities, or townships?
I received none.
Okay. Was there any official action required by any affected township, any?
Not at this time, no, there was no required actions.
Okay, the Ditch Authority will now have time for questions of the staff and discussion. As a reminder to the audience, the public hearing portion is closed. Okay, are there any questions, comments from board members as to where we want to go with this? Anyone?
Mr. Chair, I just want to kind of summarize a little bit. This process is set up by the state of Minnesota. The county has no authority to change this process. We either follow it or we don't do it. So that's where we're coming from. In past decades, rainfalls have increased, and Benton County needs drainage terribly. It's very important to Benton County's. In a previous presentation, they showed the value of the farmland improvement, the value improvement by improving drainage, and the yields go up and the market value goes up, and so it's for the public good that we follow this process. We're supposed to do it more frequently than we've been doing it, so we need to get at it. And I guess we got to think about in this process is it's for the greater good. You know, there's might people who might be disadvantaged in this area and, you know, improved in this area, but this process was set up, you know, a century ago to help improve Benton County farmland, and we've got to follow the process, and we've got to keep moving forward, and maybe, you know, if number 9, ditch number 9 needs to be cleaned, we should put that next on the list then, but I don't think we can stop. In fact, by statute, we have to do,
5 years.
you know, every 10 years, we got to do, isn't it?
Yeah, but every 5 years, we're supposed to inspect the ditches.
Every 5 years.
And
so
then,
we're way behind. We need to get at it.
yeah, so. Commissioner Brawley's right. We not only have a responsibility, but it's a statutory obligation that if there is an established ditch, we have to maintain it by state law. So.
If I had a car just come through my land, I'd want to clean it.
Okay, Warren? you had-
Well, we went through a lot of these problems they addressed out here with cattle filling in ditches. We went through that with ditch 13 and 15 that we cleaned, and we got it to flow, I guess. I think it's flowing, right?
Yeah, that's what I understand, yeah. The water is moving where it hadn't moved before, so.
So we went through a lot of them.
Okay. Any other comments, Steve?
And I believe after you do clean the ditches, yes, you gotta keep moving forward with the next ditch system in order to make this process work all the way through the county. And that's what we've figured out,
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
even in my short time on here.
Yeah.
You know, and as far as one of the letters concerned, I can't believe that Soil and Water would have infringed on the county ditches right away there when, you know, they were talking about things they did, because Soil and Water and NCRS has been pretty prominent for quite some time on getting things done, you know, the right way, so that would have to be looked at.
Yeah, I think that it kind of goes back to, back then they didn't have the benefit of having these updated records. They were still probably trying to go off of
All right.
1916 drawings, and it wasn't common practice that back then, when you did make changes in the field, did you go back and survey it afterwards and document what was actually constructed? We all know everything looks good on paper. When you get out into the field, sometimes things are changed. And that's the importance of having this document accepted today, is noting that there was that one branch that differed from the recorded alignment, and going forward, we can always go back to this drawing here.
Okay, any other discussion amongst the members? If not, we have to decide if we want to accept the engineer's report to reestablish these drainage records today. That's the action required for this, correct, Chris? Yep.
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
There is a findings in order
Yep.
before you.
Yep.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we have a motion
I'll second it.
and a second to accept those engineers' report reestablishing the drainage records. I think that's the way it
Yep.
should be. Is there any more discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Now, we've got this another step in the process here, and we gotta follow the process with, and we tend to go right by the book on this all the time, so. The next item. The next item is to, on our agenda is a public hearing to receive public comment and to consider whether or not to order a redetermination of benefits and damages pursuant to Minnesota statute 103E.51 subdivision 1A, County Ditch 14, located in sections 2, 3, 8, 10, 11, 14, 15, 16, 21, 22, 23, and 26 of Maywood Township. Before opening this public hearing, you want to give us a little report on how this differs from the other one, or what's going on here?
Yeah, so based on the presentation we did see, this process to reestablish the records, it was noted that there is a lot additional acres that are draining into the county ditch 14 than were originally assessed when the ditch was established. And so by today's statutes and standards, anybody that has water that falls on your property that drains into a drainage system does receive a benefit. So to determine that value of the benefit would be to initiate these proceedings called redetermination of benefits. And at this point, Viewers would be appointed, and the viewers are the ones that actually look at the land and the drainage system and determine the value of each parcel that it receives from that ditch. This process does not establish what the cost would be to repair the ditch. All it is establishing is the value received. And then, depending on what each parcel's percentage of the total benefits provided by that ditch system, that's how we determine a parcel's apportionment of the total repair cost or the cost to maintain that system. So that would be in the Ditch Authority's best interest, I think, to move forward with this redetermination process. That way we can determine everybody is included and captured that is receiving a benefit. And we would have that opportunity to look at where the water flows and how it's flowing. The only other thing I would add is that these viewers are independent viewers. They're disinterested. They don't have any stake or own any land in Benton County. Their process looks at topography. They look at soil types. They look at commodity prices and crop rotation and determine the value that land receives from that ditch. Kind of part of their process is they try to look at what that value of that property would be as if that ditch did not exist, and then the difference in value because that ditch is there and draining water away from it, what's the increase in value there. So that kind of concludes my report on the necessity for redetermination of benefits.
Very good. No, we're gonna, we'll do it the same way we did the last time, okay? And we'll now open the public hearing. And is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address the Ditch Authority on this agenda item? If so, please come up again and give us your name and address. It's the same process. Yep, we gotta go through it. Yep.
Randy Eilers, Benton County 4, on here on behalf of Mark and Irene Eilers. As far as this ditch 9, I don't wanna bring up ditch 9 again, but I have to, because if we go ahead and clean this 14 before number 9, you guys are gonna need a barge in our pasture to ditch. I mean, that's seriously, that's how bad it is. I mean, there's other people in this room feel the same way.
Oh, you got an excavator, clean it.
Yeah, and then what?
So, you get a permit to clean it.
Or just do it?
Well,
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes, anyone else who wishes to address the Ditch Authority on this particular item? Whoop, we got one. I figure, I could see you wanting to talk up there.
I'm Nick Schumacher. I have a couple properties over there, but mainly our home farm is 8898 175th Avenue Northeast, Oak Park. A question on this, before we approve all this, now, if we approve this engineer's report,
We did.
how
We did.
does that, I mean, does that say we clean 2 inches, or, I mean, that's kind of a crucial aspect of it, right? Or what did this, basically this just say, okay, the ditch is here, and then we determine the elevation later, or, I mean, I wanna build a house, but, yeah, we're gonna build it there, was it 10 by 10 or 40 by 60,
Yeah,
or?
I think,
or-
Chris, you want to reiterate
or
some
how's
of
that
those things?
work, or I think that's kinda
Yeah, I
critical.
will.
It's probably easier for you to explain it than it is for me.
So the actions taken today does not authorize the Ditch Authority to hire a contractor to remove any cubic foot of dirt yet. So the Ditch Authority, we may conclude this process of redetermination of benefits and determine the value and the amount of value everybody and all the parcels that would be benefited. And then at that point, the Ditch Authority, if they so choose, could say, well, let's not move forward with an actual repair project just yet. Let's consider the systems downstream. So maybe that's a point worth making, that the actions today are not authorizing an excavator to go out there and start mucking out sediment. That would be, we'd have to complete an engineering set of drawings that shows exactly elevation changes. We would calculate volumes of sediment removed, and those kind of things. And that has not been authorized as of yet to do.
So today it's just basically saying there's a ditch there and needs to get cleaned, is
That's kind of where we're at. We're saying that if we wanted to move forward with a repair project, the report that was just adopted says that we can clean back to these elevations and not have to face any additional regulatory restrictions. So the next step would be determining who all's going to help pay for that, any future repair projects.
Okay, all right, I think that, we got one more gentleman here.
corrected for that ditch and it went someplace else.
Well, why don't you come up and please address, state your name and address. This is a
All right.
public hearing, so we have to have
Me,
all
David
that.
Warner, 11019 185th Avenue Northeast. You were the first farmer basically on Benton County 9. I do have a tile running into that. That determines, you're telling me I'm gonna pay taxes on it then, correct? With the water being running off my land into the ditch? Is that what you're saying? It's been there 40 some years. It's time to be replaced or repaired. Started to be plugged. It isn't working like it used to be. Now you're gonna tell me I'm gonna pay taxes on it? Is that gonna be my land taxes? When I bought my farm, it was $285 a year. Now it's $4,000? Is that what we talking, or what?
No, I think that we might be, that's one of the reasons that we have this, I think, is to.
I mean, what are we
increase the
talking, a few
value.
bucks here,
It's
or
help
what? I
increase
know
the
darn well it won't stay that.
Yeah, well, you got a complicated thing here, because
We'll plug that tile line then, and we'll see how valuable your.
yeah,
Well, that's the problem now.
yeah.
Land value ain't going up. They say it's going up, but,
Water, do you wanna get rid of it?
Yeah, well,
You're gonna dump it on the next
are we
line?
just gonna get rid of it then and run it down and then
well,
not
I
worry
think,
about
I
our
think we
well?
have to, I think we
How
have to
about our
stick,
wells?
I think we have to
Order,
stick to
order.
what we have here, so,
Order.
Mr.
yeah,
Chair?
because we're talking about how real estate taxes work in, and if everybody's increases the same, nobody pays any more in taxes, because it's all relative, so.
Chris, could you explain to us and the people in the public of how to determine the benefits?
Okay, so, we have the benefit of this being defined in statute as well. And so, 103E talks about the value of the benefits is not determined by the county board, it's not determined by the county ditch engineer, it's determined by these viewers, who, if approved to move forward, would be appointed today. And so there's 3 independent viewers who look at the drainage system. And like I said, they consider a number of factors. They consider topography, how fast does the water get to the ditch? They look at soil types, how fast does the water drain through the soil? They look at commodity prices, how much is corn, soybeans, and what else? Oats are selling per bushel. They look at crop rotation. There'll be an opportunity to have property owner meetings. And then before we accept the report, there would be another public hearing. So there'd be an opportunity for the public to comment on that. The process gives the landowner the opportunity to discuss what's happening with their land. That's very beneficial. We need to know things like that, drain tile locations, what is draining into the ditch, how much is draining into the ditch. Even if we go out there and clean it out, if we don't know there's a drain tile existing, we could easily tear out somebody's drain tile that's coming into the ditch and not even know that. So this viewer, or this redetermination of benefits process, appoints 3 people, not associated and independent and disinterested from Benton County, to look at that. And then they'll come up with a number, and that number could be a big number, but it's just a number that's saying that ditch, being that ditch 14 exists, all this property is valued at, this number.
So it's straight across the board, average,
No.
or is it all, every property is different?
Yes, each property will be looked at different. Obviously, those that have a ditch running through their property may receive a greater benefit than somebody that's farther away from the ditch. And that's all considered in this process. So not everybody's gonna see the same amount of benefits from the ditch. And therefore, not everybody's gonna pay the same proportionate value towards the maintenance costs of the ditch. Does that answer your question, Commissioner?
Yep, all right, so I
Answers mine anyway.
yeah. I think, is there anyone else out there who wishes to speak? I think we got one more, okay.
I'm at LaFleur and this ditch goes through my property, two of them, and everything is flooded now. I lost my pasture, part of my field. I talked to Chris Bird here a few years back, and he told me there was money in this fund to clean this ditch, but they took it out and put it someplace else. Well, let's take it from that someplace else and put it back. The ditch was put there for a purpose. It's like building a new church, get all done, lock the doors, forget about it. That's what's happening here, I don't know.
Okay, we'll discuss that here when we get done. Is there anyone else out there? Last call. Anyone else? Okay. Hearing none, the public hearing is now closed. Okay, are there any emails on this one?
Well, Mr. Chair, we only received the two letters that I previously read. The letters
Okay.
didn't denote whether they were speaking in regards to the reestablishment or the redetermination.
Okay.
But, so I don't know if it is necessary to read them into the record again. They were read into the record for the,
Okay, we could just note that they're the same ones that were received in the previous program.
yeah, okay, very good.
And you received any comments, concerns from state agencies, cities, or townships?
I did not, no.
We gotta go through the process here, so. There's no official action required by a township for this particular action. is
For
there?
this action, no.
Okay, now the ditch authority will have time for questions and discussion here amongst the board members.
I just
Ditch
got
authority.
one comment, and
Okay.
that is that we've heard on several times that ditch 9, you know, we clean out ditch 14 and ditch 9 is gonna be flooded, and I like that we have the authority to look at that and not go forward until we do that. Can we go forward on that, Chris, without somebody petitioning a cleaning, or how does that work?
Yes, so there's two main, if you're under the repair statutes, there's two main ways. You could do it because somebody that has an interest or receives a benefit from that ditch requests that, and we call that a petition, or just by the action of the ditch authority is under our normal authority for inspecting and maintaining it. We can make an inspection of that and say, yeah, this is not functioning as intended. I will just preface it that, you know, once again, just like all of our ditch systems, the only drawings or official drawings we have are when it was established, and we may be best served by doing the same thing, doing a full survey, probing the bottom of the ditch and finding that hard bottom and reestablishing what that ditch should look like. So we make sure we clean it correctly.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd be good, Chris, if somebody from Ditch 9 would come in and petition to get it clean so we can go move forward.
Yeah, we could just do that under our normal authority. We can order an inspection and an engineer's report based on our normal authority, not have to wait for somebody to formally write a letter.
Because it doesn't make any sense to clean one and not the other one.
Right.
And that's correct. I agree with that. We go through the process with ditch 9 if we're
Well-
gonna do 14.
Mr. Chair, I don't wanna see the people along ditch 14 assessed for something that they're not gonna get any benefit with because downstream it's plugged up. So, you know, I think everybody in that, I take most of these are on ditch 14. And I've heard the concern several times, so, either we need to find somebody to quick get a petition in for number 9 or maybe move forward.
We can do it ourselves right now.
Yeah, I'd feel more comfortable if somebody would petition from ditch 9,
Yeah, that sounds, yeah.
right?
Makes it a
I would
little
feel more
easier.
comfortable with that.
Well, you better talk to some people up there, Ed,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mr. Chair, but I don't think that precludes us from moving forward on.
No.
On ditch
Right.
14.
Yep.
here, so-
Correct. We can continue with this process and not order any money be spent on moving dirt yet, so.
It takes time to go through these processes,
Yep, that's
hearings and.
Yeah, from start to finish is quite
One more comment I would add is that, you know, what have we been through the redetermination of benefits on 3 different ditches now?
Yeah. Mhm.
Yep.
This will
And,
be the fourth
you know,
one, yeah.
for the people that are here, that every time we've done that, the area has grown, that has benefited acres. So, you know, your cost goes down if you're on the ditch, your cost probably goes down, so just, you know, keep that in mind. That they all have grown, I don't know by how much, but they have grown.
Yeah, I think that's a safe.
Pardon?
But the depth of the ditch hasn't.
I don't know about that.
Okay. Any more discussion amongst the members of the Drainage Authority? If not, we have some action we could be taking here, that ordering a redetermination of benefits.
Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion to redeterminate, or to have a redetermination of benefits on ditch
And
14.
damages pursuant to, yep, okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, do we have any further discussion on that? Not, I'll
Would you
call-
guys make sure that you identify who you are appointing as viewers?
Okay,
In the orders and finding document for redetermination, there was names listed of appointing the
Oh,
viewers, so.
okay.
So if we could have somebody read off those names of who we're appointing.
Okay, have you got them,
Are they handy?
somebody got them there?
As we're looking through our iPads.
I don't know,
I didn't see that.
I didn't see anything.
Do you want all four of them, or, I mean?
Well, there is three of
Three.
them that are pointed, and then there's an alternate if one of them were not
Alternate, yeah.
able to complete, so.
Okay.
Oh,
and
Brian
it's-
Murphy,
Correct, that would be the names there, yeah.
Chantel, sorry, I'm not good with the names. Larry Murphy and Robert Connolly. Page 44. 43.
Well, somebody could
page
read 'em
four.
off here. I don't know. I,
43 my iPad, but 4, probably page 4 on your papers.
Page 4.
Bottom page 4 and top of page 5.
So there was, 3 and,
Persons appointed to the ditch viewers in accordance with the Minnesota statute.
Chantel Hurst, Larry Murphy, and Robert Conley.
paper one didn't, ever did it?
Brian Murphy.
I don't know, I don't
There
see
was
that.
3 and an alternate.
Yep.
Pardon?
There was 3 and an alternate. Brian Murphy, Chantel Hitch, and Larry Murphy, and Robert Conley was an alternate.
So do we want that included in the motion?
Yes, we
Yes.
do, we need that in
So
the motion.
I don't have the names before me, but I'll
Brian
include.
Murphy, Chantel Hitch,
Write 'em
Larry
down.
Murphy, and Robert Conley.
That them names be included in the motion to move forward.
Okay. Yep, with friendly amendment to put those, add those in there, I think they're going to
Correct.
comply with the statute, so.
Yep, and I'll amend, and then I'll amend it to my second.
Okay.
All right,
To
thanks.
include that.
You'll accept that, okay.
There it is.
Okay, do we have any more discussion on this? Michelle, we miss anything else?
We gotta,
And just, designate the auditor to comply with their duties. It's in the order, it's in the proposed order.
Okay, we
so
don't wanna,
it's
miss
in
anything
general.
here, yeah.
gotta take a vote individually too.
All right, we do not want to.
Okay, and would that be acceptable to the motion maker and the seconder to
Yep, that's acceptable to me.
appoint the auditor to do that? Okay,
Yes, Mr. Chair, Michelle, would it be easier if we just went A, B, C, D, E, and F in our motion?
we didn't
You
do
could
that.
certainly do that. You could read them all as one big motion. It just itemizes that you are authorizing the redetermination of benefits and damages, that you're appointing these individuals, that then the auditor treasurer has duties that they have to comply with, as do the viewers.
Correct.
And, yeah, that the viewers would would draft a report.
Thank you.
Okay, is there, so we gotta have all that in there?
This is a mess, yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah, okay, here, yeah.
We have to include everything from A through F in our
All
motion.
right.
Oh, I see.
Should we be,
So-
okay.
So if the
We have to
motion
read
maker
all
would
those,
amend his motion to include A through F.
A through
We
F
can
on
do
the,
that.
In the
after
order.
the findings in the order?
Okay.
That
So
would-
you want me to amend that motion again?
Yeah, you probably should.
I
Okay.
would, yep.
So I'll amend the motion to be moved forward with determination of benefits on County Road, or ditch 14, and that the order of A through F be included in the motion.
Okay,
And I'll amend and I'll second that.
okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Of the amendment, amended motion, yeah. Aye,
We gotta
okay.
vote
And then we have to vote for the entire motion now.
No, we gotta vote individually.
Yeah, that's right, we gotta vote individually on the entire motion, yeah. Okay. Commissioner Heinen,
Aye.
Peschel, Mr. Peschel.
A.
And I will vote yea.
Yay.
Yay.
Okay, we all, 5-0. Okay, and I declare the motion passed and the findings and order adopted. I think that's where we're at, right? It was a struggle, yeah. Okay, I think that's, I think that concludes this portion. We're gonna go ahead as.
So we can continue with the
Yep.
agenda?
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Okay, well, the other thing that I had on the agenda for the Ditch Authority was an update on County Ditch 3. And as you recall, we did receive a repair petition from somebody that is within that ditch system. So as of today, we had issued an RFP, a request for proposals, to find an engineering consultant to help us with this engineering work as well. So in your agenda packet, I had included a copy of the RFP so you could see what we were requesting. We did receive 4 proposals from 4 different engineering consultants. In our RFP, we did establish how the scores were going to be determined. 30% of the score was weighted towards the cost. So cost was a factor in determining this. Once we received the 4 proposals, myself and the assistant county engineer independently reviewed and scored the 4 proposals. And the engineering consultant that scored the highest out of the 4 received was Houston Engineering, the same consulting firm that's been working on our other ditches. So as an update, I just was just going to say that I would like to move forward with awarding or giving Houston Engineering a professional services agreement to do that surveying work and create a report for us on County Ditch 3. So I don't know if it requires a formal, I didn't ask for a formal action, but that's my intentions, is to move forward with getting a professional services agreement in place with them, so they can continue working.
I think we should do that.
Yeah, okay, that's in your district, so.
Yeah, I'm pushing this one, yep.
Okay.
Should I make the motion?
Yes, please do.
Make
I'll
that
make a motion and that we entered a professional service agreement with Houston Engineering to look at County Ditch number 3.
Second, Mr. Chair.
And a second. Any discussion? Any more discussion? I know we've discussed this quite a bit in the past, so we probably don't need the time allotted, that's for sure.
Mr. Chair, they've done all of our ditches in the past, haven't they?
They're very professional.
Yep, very good at it too.
They do 40 different counties, so they must know what they're doing.
Yeah. Okay. If there's no more discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried, and we'll sign the agreement.
I have nothing further.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.